Hopefully you'll be able to hear us now, Martin.
Okay, after our little technical glitch. You will all have had your time to consider the agenda and hard copies of the late papers that are placed in your table. I am happy with the proposed business and intend to take it in the order set out on the agenda. Just a reminder that we are being live streamed on YouTube. The broadcast will end when we go into our private session, and any public who is still in the chamber at that point will be asked to leave. Moving on to items 1 is the apology for absence. Are there any apologies?
I believe we've received apologies from Councillor Bradley, Councillor Wheelhouse. No. Councillor Edward.
We've got Councillor Hall and Councillor Hutchins.
Thank you. Is everybody happy with those? Thank you all very much. Moving on to item 2, declaration of interest. Members are requested to declare the existence and nature of any disposable pecuniary interest and or other interests not already on their register of interest in any item on the agenda and withdraw from the meeting at the appropriate time. Do any members have any interest to declare? Councillor Lydia?
Item 11 as well, someone show the project.
Yeah, item 18, Northwood, I'm a director of Northwood. It's not a, it's only a presentation update.
Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Renwick.
I've got 3, Chair. Item 7, the resolution deal amendment for sorry, the dog voted. Then there's motion C, Shipman's motion on fracking. Again, I'm on that one. And then the Northwood item, I have an issue with checking. I don't think it's better, but my son had expressed them not exchanging the contract. Full transparency.
Thank you. Councillor Redden?
Yeah, declaration of interest on item 14, promotion within fracking. Just to explain, I'm the portfolio holder at Delta County Council for the planning and the minerals. Just to explain, there's no conflict of interest at this particular point. I think I can still be part of the debate and vote, but just to express that I wouldn't, in any situation where there was a plan in place, that
Thank you. Any further interest?
Just on the basis that Councillor Stewart has, I think for all members, it's noted on item 7. And the fracking motion, I don't think it could impact on our ability to speak or vote. But
That's what you Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item 3, minutes of the last meeting. Yes.
You mentioned earlier about the papers that we've received, which was a very late addition to the agenda. I'm very concerned about that because it gave very, you said yourself, very short notice to let those reports. The additional paperwork there will take you about 4 hours just to literally look, not to read, not to try to understand, not to double back, not to read. So 4 hours to the scanning line across the 820 odd papers. I think it's very remiss of someone that this information, some important stuff on there that we all want to get involved in, has come so late. It means that we're not able to do our job properly looking at items. And I just wonder what the reason for it being so late is.
I'll take it back to this package that we've bundle that we've got here. Yeah. Right. I don't want to come back in 8 hours. Too busy. Thank you, Chair. In relation to the Stonebrook Community Governance Review, we did make it clear that that was going to the wire and it would be one that would be very much being worked on right up to the last minute. So I can only apologise, but the working party has put it together since the 14th of November and there's no way to go. In relation to the allocation of places to committees, I have to say I've done so many reports on this. The figures change repeatedly. We've now got to the final figures and that's fine. In relation to the DVO deal, Lee, answer that one.
Yeah, absolutely can. Again, like Sarah, I'm more than happy to apologise. I do apologise. I know this has been a bit of a moving feast. There's not, if I'm brutally honest, there's not a lot in there other than an update. We've circulated some of this before in terms of what we found out as we found out. So it's been an ongoing story. This paper relates to the 4 tier authorities developing a proposal document to go out to be consulted upon. Consultation period began on the 14th of November and will run until January. So this is an update on that. So with all due respect, there's going to be weeks we consider and be able to have your say, like a proper consultation process. But I appreciate the sooner we get these reports out, the better, and we'll end up doing that.
Suspended and put to a future meeting. It's certainly not good. It will literally take you 8 hours to go through one. Thank you.
Moving on to item 3, minutes of the last meeting. All have minutes that were held on Monday the 12th of September and on Monday the 3rd of October. I would like to take them both together. Are we all happy that they are a correct record? Is there a mover? Is there a seconder? All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Councillor Jones, you were abstaining. Oh, thank you. With that, the motion has been carried. Thank you. Chair's announcement. Keeping mine very brief as we've got a very full meeting today. This month has certainly been a busy one for me, having many differences. These range from taking part in planting a tree at the Queen's Canopy at Shipley Country Park, beautiful day, with the charter fair at Ilkeston, which was not wall-to-wall rain. To the awards ceremonies covering the volunteer sector, the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme, also on this morning's event, where the presentation of British Empire medals were made. On receiving an award for her voluntary work. Well done, Pam. But it is with great disappointment that I must announce the cancellation of the 70th disco due to lack of support. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank Councillor Heather Liggett for all the hard work that she has put into organising this event. However, we are not being discouraged. We have put together a programme of events for the coming year. starting with the memorial service on Sunday the 5th. The big one would also be the Armed Forces Family Fun Day, and I hopefully, that you will support these events. Further details to follow. Thank you. Item 5, leaders' announcement.
Thank you very much, Chair. As you say, we've got a hefty agenda, so I'll try not to speak for too long. There's been a very significant focus for Cabinet recently on the cost of living issues, and I want to thank the other group leaders for their contributions to the recent cross-party meetings on this issue. And in particular, I want to thank Councillor Kenyon, who's taken a real lead on it from within Cabinet. Steve Lee is here today and will be giving us a presentation on this shortly, which will enable all members to be able to feed in any further ideas on what we could be doing that we're not currently to support our residents and businesses. So I'm not going to preempt too much of what Steve is going to cover, but I think there are a couple of things just to note at this stage. Firstly, that the North East Derbyshire News was recently published, which hopefully you've seen, and it includes our cost of living special booklet within it. There's additional copies of that being printed too for further distribution, and it really is full of really useful information, both in terms of support packages that are out there, as well as being stuffed with energy saving tips. And I'd all urge your members to try and share that as far and wide as you possibly can in your local patches. Cabinet has also just approved the recruitment of 2 additional community outreach workers within the environmental health team who will be on hand to support anyone who needs help, whether that's with managing finances, signposting further support, or providing advice and guidance. And I think our key message to North East Derbyshire is that we stand ready to support anyone in the district who needs our help. One of the most significant challenges of this crisis is that the dial has shifted, and more people who might otherwise be considered as financially stable are now experiencing hardship. It's not just the more vulnerable groups who are struggling now, but as a consequence, unlike our more vulnerable groups, we don't always now know who and where the people are who need our support. So we're seeking to capture some of that sense of community spirit and the way in which people looked out for each other that we saw during the COVID pandemic. We need more eyes on the ground, and so we're writing out to local stakeholders like parish councils, community groups, shopkeepers and publicans to share some of that information material with them so that they can direct anyone they know who might need our support to our door. And I'd ask that all members, as local champions in our patches, help us to spread this mantra, that if you or anyone you know needs help, please get in touch and don't leave it too long before doing so. I'd also like to say a big thank you to all our staff who continue to pull out all the stops to support our residents and businesses during these challenging times. Councillor Cupid and I recently spent a day on a shift with some of our fantastic refuse teams. We had a great time despite the unstinting rain, and it was great to experience firsthand what it's like to spend a day in their shoes. It was also really nice to see how many residents do stop and take the time to thank the team with small gestures and kind words. So I want to say a huge thank you to all of them for working so hard, day in, day out, and come rain or shine, and what a mess we'd be in without them. I also recently spent the morning at Dronfield Leisure Centre shadowing the staff there, and again, it was really great to see behind the scenes how much work goes into keeping the centres up and running. Being able to witness some of the health and safety and checking systems that we have in place meant that I left feeling really reassured that our centres operate like a very well-oiled machine. The staff were incredibly versatile, jumping into different roles to support each other all the time, and they were all very friendly and knew our customers well, and were clearly passionate about the work that they do. All were a real credit to the council, and it's easy to see that why we, as North East Derbyshire District Council, are considered a trailblazer in leisure at a time when hundreds of swimming pools are being closed down all around us. We're doing a range of further back to the floor sessions with other teams in the coming weeks and months, and I look forward to spending more time learning about the brilliant work that our staff do. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6, the Armed Forces Employment Recognition Gold Award. This was a lovely evening. I think it's something we can all be very proud of. And as you know, the council was awarded this scheme, but it was a lot of hard work from a lot of people. And here to present it to us today is Bruce Spencer, the East Midlands Regional Employee Engagement Director. So welcome to the council and thank you for attending today's meeting.
Thank you very much indeed, and a pleasure to be with you today. I know Martin is going to say a few words in a minute, and one of the things that he may well say to you is about this award and how special it is. There are 6.5 million employers in this country. There are 638 Gold Award holders, and you were one of them. One of the things that when the Secretary of State looked at this application, which was forwarded by Martin, was that how positive it was and the unrelenting support of the armed forces that has come across the entire district. I put it in the top of I've got 54 golds across the East Midlands. I put it in the top 10%. So thank you all for all the support that you've shown to the armed forces, because the armed forces stretches and they're everywhere in your community. There are veterans, there are Cadet Force adult volunteers, there are reservists, but perhaps some people here may well be spouses of people who are serving overseas right now. So I do congratulate you. I congratulate you for this unrelenting support to the armed forces, wherever they are and however they show up in your community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to now ask Councillor Martin Thacker to receive this award on our behalf because he's done stinking work to achieve it. I'd like Councillor Thacker to say a few words.
Thank you, Chair. You've seen my screen. Thank you very much, Bruce. Council is proud to be awarded the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme Gold Award for outstanding support for the armed forces community. As you say, the awards are presented to employers that demonstrate significant support for those who serve, for veterans and their families. It's wonderful to hear that among almost 7 million employers in the UK, 638 have received the Gold Award. We're one of them. So this achievement is something to celebrate. North East Derbyshire District Council undertook the journey under a previous administration and continued ever since. This is evidence of cross-party backing for a worthwhile endeavour. The Council's practical support for the armed forces community is recognised by Stoll, a leading provider of supported housing to vulnerable veterans. Stoll appointed North East Derbyshire District Council as a housing hero for its work to help veterans faced with homelessness to find safe and secure housing. The council officer leading this work is himself an army veteran and armed forces officer champion. Other services we provide for include the armed forces advertising. Our vacancies are put on the Career Transition Partnership and Forces Families Job website. Employment services through our Community Employment Advisor who attends the DWP Armed Forces Hub in Chesterfield, and referrals for assistance with home accessibility through the Home Improvement Team. Each year we post a flyer to every household in the district explaining our commitment to the armed forces community and encouraging eligible residents to register as members of the armed forces community so that we can help them access grants and home adaptations, as well as encouraging businesses to make a pledge to the Armed Forces Covenant. We send Armed Forces community newsletters and regular bulletins to those on the AFC contact list to share relevant information. As Armed Forces Champion, I've attended numerous events this year, including the Armed Forces Hub in Chesterfield, TS Daney Sea Cadets and 331 Squadron RAF Cadets, the Buxton Military Tattoo, organised by the Royal British Legion, and various events for the Poppy Appeal, including the Chesterfield Festival of Remembrance and Rotary Poppy Ball. I am proud to have implemented the role of civic cadets for this authority. Tasks include support for the Chair and Armed Forces Champion on civic occasions, assisting in fundraising and promoting the work of uniformed organisations in the community. They are fantastic ambassadors for their units. Representatives from the Council are attendees at events such as the Stand To Conference, share information about available support for the Armed Forces community, and the Buddy Buddy Group, a monthly social for ex-service personnel held at Chesterfield Football Club. Both events underline the need for our support. North East Derbyshire District Council has a regular presence at the Armed Forces Hub in Chesterfield to network with military organisations and residents to showcase the services we offer the Armed Forces community in the district. Council commemorates Armed Forces Day, Armistice Day, Remembrance Sunday, and other important days. We place there Tommies in local leisure centres to raise public awareness and remember the fallen. The Council Chair and myself as Armed Forces Champion attended Parish Council remembrance events across the district. In 2021, we coordinated an Armed Forces Covenant celebration event at Dromfield Sports Centre, which included a remembrance service attended by the Vice Lord Lieutenant of Derbyshire, the High Sheriff of Derbyshire, veterans and other dignitaries. It was a splendid day. Looking ahead, we are making plans for the Chair's Family Fun Day in May 2023, which will raise funds for SAFA. This is being supported by council officers and will include a presence and displays from the Armed Forces, along with emergency services, craft stalls and entertainment. We are keen to build on our successes to date and look forward to continuing our work with our partners, residents and other organisations to help deliver on our ongoing commitment to the Armed Forces community in North East Derbyshire District. Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to open the floor if anyone else would like to make a comment. If not, I'd like to. Oh, Councillor Dale, sorry.
Thank you, Jed. Just very briefly to thank Bruce very kindly for his attendance today and for being with us here, and also thank you to Martin for all of his unstinting work, as you say, as Armed Forces Champion. You couldn't have a better champion for the Armed Forces within the council if we tried. And also thank you, as you alluded to Steve Lee, who's been the officer champion for all of his work in the background as well. So big thank you to all involved, and really, really proud of this team.
Councillor Barker?
Yeah, just to echo that, I think Martin's been, what was the word? Very active. He's done that. And it is a good thing for the council that we're involved with all that. And I'll echo what Alistair just said. Thank you, everybody.
Councillor Rowe?
And everybody else, as a veteran of full service career in the army, very important that this people get the hard work that goes into it. And it's very important that it gives them an avenue in to do things that can't be appreciated in also. Well,
Thank you. Anybody else? No, thank you. Just like to echo those sentiments, especially to Martin and to all the officers that have been involved in this unstinting work. Thank you. And if everyone is happy with that, can we agree by show of hands that we're happy to accept the award?
Come and take it back.
I'm not going through the rest of it then. We'll take that as read. Thank you. Moving on to item 7, devolution, the deal update. I'm going to hand this over to Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the paper itself, you'll note that it summarises the background to how the current deal has come about, as well as the content of the deal and the proposed governance. As Lee echoed, really sorry that the paper has come out as late as it has, but it doesn't. I don't think there's anything new that you won't hopefully already be aware of. I've tried to send out updates as I've received them. I think that's the last one I sent out the full consultation document and the proposal document. So hopefully most of that you'll have seen before anyway. And I know that there will be a range of views within the chamber about the deal and what it will mean for our residents and the district as a whole. And therefore, in terms of the recommendations, I felt that the fairest and best way to capture these views and then feed them into the consultation was to allow all members who wish to speak, state their views during this debate, and then capture those comments via the minutes and submit them as North East Derbyshire's consultation response. So I'm happy to move the recommendations that firstly that we note items 1.1 and 1.2, and then also that as part of recommendation number 2, that we submit those comments that we're going to hear from all members in the chamber to the consultation. I thought I would kick us off, by stating my own view, because that's okay, having moved the recommendations. So I think I've said before, from my perspective, that I'm not particularly fond of the mayoral model of governance for all the reasons that I think many within this chamber share that view. I wish that it wasn't a requirement of a meaningful devolution deal and that an alternative method, like a rotating chair, for example, was able to be adopted instead. But unfortunately, we know that that won't fly with government. In order to access a deal on this scale and with these powers, accepting a directly elected mayor is a prerequisite. So then it really comes down to a balanced view. Is opposition to a mayor a red line which we should not cross, or is accepting a mayor a price worth paying in order to access the deal and the significant investment in our region that comes with it? And while I have mixed views, on balance, I fall into the latter category. For decades and by successive governments, the East Midlands has been underfunded in terms of our infrastructure. Now, I see that firsthand in terms of education funding when we compare ourselves to more of the metropolitan areas, but it's also true of things like transport funding. For me, it doesn't feel right to bemoan these facts and yet then fail to take up an opportunity like the devolution deal to address that imbalance. The £38 million per year deal, when coupled with several other funding pots and the additional powers to help unlock our growth potential, could make a substantial difference. And it is an opportunity that we shouldn't shy away from. It's also a starting point. It opens doors for further negotiation with government so that we can access further opportunities, both financial and in terms of powers. We know that those areas with mayoral combined authorities tend to be at the front of the queue when the government distributes new funding, and in my view, we need to be there with them. I've heard from some that they're concerned that all this money will end up being directed at the two cities, and we here in North East Derbyshire will end up with hardly anything. And I think that is a fair criticism of the D2N2 local enterprise partnership, which has been the mechanism by which most infrastructure funding has been channeled in recent years. And I think it's fair to say that they have put GBA above anything else. And as a result, Nottingham and Derby City have tended to fare best when the funding has been distributed. The fundamental difference, though, of the new county combined authority and the mayor who will sit at the top of it is that they will be directly elected by the region and therefore be democratically accountable. And while I know that most people's views towards the idea of a mayor, including my own, are not favourable, we do have to accept the fundamental fact that they will, whoever they are, rely on the votes of people in North East Derbyshire, as well as every other corner of the region. The districts and counties will vastly outweigh the cities in this new arrangement, and I dare say that any mayor who focuses too much on the cities to the detriment of the districts won't last long in the job. Turning to the issue of North East Derbyshire District Council's role and place within the proposed new arrangement, I want to specifically address the concerns of those who fear that this is the thin end of the wedge and the starting point on the journey towards unitarisation. If we take the Levelling Up white paper and the devolution deal itself at face value, it's absolutely clear that that is not what is intended. There are very clear statements in both documents about the continued important role districts would play in the new arrangement. This is not about centralising powers upwards from districts and boroughs, but about devolving power downwards from Whitehall to a mayor and combined authority. It's absolutely categoric that we are not being asked, after this devolution deal, to surrender any of our existing powers or responsibilities, and if we were, I wouldn't support it. Moreover, the District Councils network, of which we are a member, has secured the agreement of government to amend the Levelling Up Bill currently going through Parliament to give all districts a consent lock on any attempts that any mayor may make in future to absorb any of our current responsibilities. In simple terms, that means that if any future mayor tries to take on our powers, we can say no and have that listened to. I've been in countless briefing meetings over the past few months regarding devolution, and it's been really apparent to me that all four of the upper tier leaders really value the input of the district and boroughs. That's why there was district representation on the negotiation team with government, and it's why there is provision within the new new proposed governance model that we have representation at MCCA level, and quite likely votes as well on matters which pertain to district functions. Now, clearly no one has a crystal ball, and it's impossible to predict what national policy around local government will look like in 5, 10 or 20 years. But to those who fear that this is unitarisation through the back door, I'd say that if that was the desire of government, this is an incredibly unusual way to go about it. Why on earth would the government go to the effort of publishing a white paper which sets out its ambition to extend devolution to two-tier areas while keeping both tiers intact, and then go to the extent of taking primary legislation through Parliament to enable mayoral county combined authorities to be created for two-tier areas like the East Midlands? If the government secretly wanted to achieve local government reorganisation, why would they go to such effort to do the opposite? Why not just embark on a programme of unitarisation now? My own personal view is that this apparent threat of unitarisation being discussed in some quarters doesn't really hold up to scrutiny. But I'd go even further than that. I think my honest view is that the do nothing option poses a far greater risk for the future of district and borough councils. If we fail to engage in a meaningful way with devolution, try to add value to it and demonstrate why our involvement is so important for the success of the region, then I think we will be contributing to a situation where unitarisation is more likely in the future. And while I know that change is difficult, we cannot and should not stand still. We need to adapt to the changing landscape to ensure that we remain relevant. To bring my remarks to a close, Chair, I do understand and respect the fact that many members have their doubts and concerns over the direction of travel. And there are several aspects which I'm not entirely happy with myself. But on balance, having reflected on all of these issues in some detail over the past few months, I've come to the conclusion that we have little to fear from this deal, but a lot that we could stand to gain. And ultimately, my honest view is that this is likely to happen, whether we like it or not. My absolute priority, while ever I'm leader of this council, is that whatever happens and under whatever arrangements we move to in the future, I'll continue to champion North East Derbyshire and make the strongest possible case I can to ensure our residents and businesses benefit from the opportunities that become available. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lewis?
Thank you, Chair, and I'm very. And in doing so, just to say that I'm really pleased that we're doing this, notwithstanding, of course, the uncertainty that now surrounds the Levelling Up Bill that is mired in difficulty about issues relating to planning and offshore wind farms at the moment. As we all know, that this legislation includes devolution. However, I'm hopeful they'll work through to either disaggregate or get on with it. But nonetheless, pleased for having this opportunity to discuss here at District Council, and that the debate here is going to feed into the consultation for the mayoral county combined authority. And the debate here will be necessarily different as well, as it will be from the one that we'll hold at the county and no doubt cities discussing. What I must emphasise in this is that this is a Midlands mayoral county combined authority, and I emphasise that shift from the previous city centre county focused one. And I'm sure the views here expressed will be constructive, forward-looking, not mired in the debates of the past, but will look outwards beyond the confines of committee rooms, party politics, and be about seizing the opportunity to make a real difference to residents' lives and livelihoods to make real progress in investment, infrastructure, transport, green technology, and to speed up decarbonising our economy and really level up for Derbyshire and the East Midlands. North East Derbyshire has been one of those left behind areas, whose residents so resolutely and decisively voted for change in recent years because they want to see us make a difference, making the changes right here in this chamber to really level up. Yes, there are bits that we might not like. I'm not enamoured of the idea of a mayor any more than most people here will be, but there's no significant devolution of powers without one, and the government, any government, isn't going to devolve real powers or real money without one. We'll have to reluctantly countenance one, and the benefits, I believe, outweigh the downsides. To be clear, we won't be having a mayor that can willy-nilly do as he or she pleases. It'll be a mayor answerable to the region through robust governance, which districts and boroughs will be part of. Districts and boroughs won't be ceding any powers to the mayor, nor any potential development sites without their consent, a concern that I've heard expressed. Like all things of this nature, there are myths. Myths like planning and housing powers will be concentrated in the hands of the mayor, which is simply not true. They'll stay right here with North East District. People will ask, well, what about police forces, police and crime commissioners and fire authorities? Well, at this time, due to the complexities of two force and two fire authority areas undergoing other changes right now, there is no immediate requirement to look at how they could be devolved. It will be for a mayor from 2024, if we get there, to discuss with those forces, PCCs and authorities, what the plan is, and whatever is agreed would then likely be enacted before 2028. As I said, districts and boroughs are partners in an MCCA, retaining all the cards that relate to their powers and functions. Resetting powers are seen as another area where mayors may go rogue, but again, these can't be enacted without the support of the MCCA. Of the 9 or so MCCAs out there, only 2 have elected to precept, both Labour MCCAs, so it's not the norm. Remembering too that the mayor will sit over a wide area that includes 2 counties and 2 cities, maybe in the future will include Leicestershire and Leicester, and to be clear, it cannot be one or the other of those authorities, it must be both if it happens. This dilution of the mayor's reach ensures that the robustness and need for the local authorities beneath the MCCA to deliver the very ambitious agenda the mayor will no doubt have. Subsidiarity of those powers will be key to make the MCCA work effectively. In essence, the need for local delivery close to the people will be more important, not less important. What you might say, but Barry, we have another expensive layer of local government and that won't work. I would say to you that the cost of the mayor are very containable and that the value for money argument will be unassailable.
And we need to
Look
go,
at the
Councillor.
investment. Sorry?
Just a minute, Councillor.
Okay. Just look at the investment that's pouring into the region. I'll summarise by saying that local authorities need to take this next step in their evolution, to take grown-up steps into the big wide world and look up and seize the moment that devolution can bring. Take those powers, share them, use them, drive the investment we need to get good, clean growth and better quality of life for North East Derbyshire residents. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity and we cannot miss it. And if we do so at the cost of the future wealth and prosperity of our residents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I am going to open the floor now for further comments. I'm going to start with Councillor Thacker, followed by Councillor Barr.
Thank you, Chair. For those of us who were councillors in the 1990s, this is deja vu. We were told then that joining together was better. No argument for this ever resonated, and eventually the move to unitary authorities was shelved. In the meantime, scores of local government officers feared losing their livelihoods. Stress was palpable. Important decisions were put on hold, and hours upon hours of time were wasted on this project. We appear to have learned nothing. If collaboration is the panacea, why have we not made more of East Midlands Council? Instead, it has become a talking shop where I think little is achieved and decision making is in the hands of a very select few. For all its years in existence, what evidence is there that working together succeeds for significant outcomes? If better together is the solution, why has the local enterprise partnership been of no real benefit to the people of North East Derbyshire? Access to funding for our communities seems non-existent. Instead, money appears to have been swallowed up in projects for the cities of Derby and Nottingham. This should be a warning to us. Proposed mayoralties for Greater Lincolnshire, Norfolk and Suffolk were abandoned when devolution deals in those areas collapsed. People saw the light during the process, unlike here, where this has been done to us and not with us. If this project is so compelling, why has there been no meaningful engagement with second-tier authorities? Why are we told that this is a fait accompli and we have no right of veto? Why are the opinions of councils such as Bolsover and South Derbyshire ignored when they say no to a combined authority? The first combined authority to be established was Greater Manchester Combined Authority in 2011. How many times have we had to see Andy Burnham go back to government for additional funding? The next additional combined authorities were established in 2014. One of those was Liverpool City Region. It's a matter of public record that Merseyside Police conducted an investigation into Liverpool City Council, resulting in a number of arrests made on suspicion of fraud, bribery, corruption, and misconduct in public office, and government intervention has been necessary. You can't tell me there haven't been repercussions for that region. But what about Sheffield City Region, where the directly elected mayor has failed to save the local airport? So much for combined authorities being great for developing transport links. How quickly we forget that Derbyshire County Council launched judicial review proceedings regarding Sheffield City Region in 2016. I recall the campaign about local democracy that we seem to have forgotten now. How about the impact of the West Yorkshire directly elected mayor in an area that has seen one of the highest repercussions of the cost of living crisis? Research shows West Yorkshire could see up to 58,000 jobs lost next year, leading to an unemployment rate of 14% and £12 billion wiped off the value of the regional economy. So much for combined authorities. In my view, combined authorities are not the holy grail of local democracy. They are the holy fail. It is the destruction of grassroots representation, in my opinion. I have nothing in common with anyone in the cities of Derby and Nottingham, and they have nothing in common with me. We do not want the same things for our communities. We will not benefit greatly from a combined authority whose funding will inevitably be swallowed up by the cities. Both are facing financial difficulties, and Nottingham is currently on the receiving end of government intervention. Every elected member in this chamber has a responsibility to stand up for North East Derbyshire as a district and ensuring a genuine grassroots connection with the people who put their trust in us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barker?
Thank you. Follow that. To be honest, I was a bit surprised to see this on the agenda, to be honest, given the divisive nature of the subject matter, and I'm sure you know all about that. But I'm more than happy to debate it. We're here, and like we all accept that there's more money on the table from central government, which we're obviously very welcome of, but it has got these strings attached, which have been flagged up, and that I don't think that it's where you draw the line. That's the thing, isn't it? Personally, I can't understand why we need to set up another tier of local government. I don't. If there's extra money there, why can't they just allocate it round to the councils that are already there on a pro rata basis? Then we get our share. And I think it's been muted about linking up with Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire. I think, you know, we're all think that we're at Central University in North East Derbyshire, but we're a long way from Nottingham City Centre and the problems that they've got. So it seems obvious to me anyway that all the resources are going to end up in. I know you've said that you know they get voted around here and all that. So it's a trust thing whether we believe that or we don't. And I can't see North East Derbyshire benefiting from this arrangement. And I'm not convinced about the concept of a mayor either. It does set up another bureaucratic body that'll need funding. They'll need officers to support them. They'll need other things to do that, which will need funding. And I know you're saying at this point it won't be precepted, but in the future, I think it will. And I think the consequence of that is that it will lead to reorganisation of local government. And that's the bottom line. It might be 5, 6, 10 years down the line, but it'll mean the abolition of districts and boroughs like ours. And I don't see the people of North East Derbyshire, I think you read to it there, the destruction of local democracy. Because the further you take them decisions and people like us away from the local communities we live in, the less that people are going to buy into that. It's hard enough now when they know us. I know they're going to vote for somebody from Nottingham that they've never seen in their life. I can't see that happening. So that's where we are. And I've also, and I accept the resolution that's on there, but I don't think that goes far enough. Just listening to the views of people here and feeding them into the consultation, I don't think it says enough. So I've put together an amendment to that resolution, which I've furnished governance team with. I don't know if you want to distribute that now, Sarah, or rather me read it out, because that is 4 pages long.
Good.
No, it isn't. Well, it just goes along the line. Do people want to see side to that? I think and then we need to decide what we do with that ultimately. For this reason, trying to write it down. I got it. Liverpool next time.
That's my concern. And then it speaks about these national development management strategies. That's the power that I think will be devolved down from central government to this mayoral capacity. So this power is going to be devolved to the mayor. Now, when you look at what it says in the Levelling Up white paper, it says there, this is quite important to me, that the National Development Management Strategy has primacy over the local plan. So you're not necessarily losing powers in your local plan. Another plan, another strategy will have powers over our local plan, much like the relationship between neighbourhood plans and local plans taking primacy over those. It's exactly the same thing. Now, if you look at that Levelling Up paper that's gone through, one of the amendments put by Theresa Villiers was to reverse that, to give the local plan primacy over the strategy. So it's all about who's in charge. And when you look at this, it's all about control and power all the way through. Now, how would the mayor get any district or any borough to agree? We'd be briefed, and we'd be briefed over and over and over again. We'd be consulted on over and over and over again, like you've got some choice. A business case would then be put forward. This is how it works. And then it'd be a carrot and a stick. It'd either be extra funding or it'd be the withholding of investment. So you felt like you couldn't make any other decision. So this is drip, 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 and that's exactly what it be. It's about control and power. If you don't get that, read the 32-page document and you'll see those two words over and over and over and over again. Control, power, control, power. And that's exactly what it is. When we end up signing up for this, I know we don't as a district council, but we end up getting this put over us, what will actually, when we actually look back and read it, you think, oh, crikey, that's exactly what it said. It's
Minute to go, Councillor.
Sorry?
Minute to go.
Minute. Try and put it in. Lastly, when we look at investment, the figures are 38 million. And if you times them by 30 years, they go into billions. Absolutely. But 38 million, when you share that out by the 2.2 million people, is £17 each. It actually works out at 17 quid each. That combined authority has also got, as we've heard, got tax raising powers. Now, it's not going to use them, but it will eventually, as Councillor Barker said. So for me, it can raise its own precepts. It can also raise the tax on the business rates as well. And that, but when it comes to that £17 will mean nothing. It will mean nothing when it comes down to it, because it's another layer of government. That's the worst bit. There's two things for me. It's a fifth layer of government, yeah, or we lose another layer of government and it replaces us some layer somewhere. So it's there. And lastly, there's the SPF funding too. That goes over there. That's 2.6 million we're expecting sometime over the next 3 years. They'll be in control of that. That won't come to this district. That'll be Derby and Nottingham. That's where it'll go. And lastly, I'm grateful that we have got a free vote on this, if you like. And these Labour amendments are exactly what I wanted to express. Exactly what I wanted to tell to whoever's listening.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councillor. Councillor Rowe?
I'll be extremely quick. For me, I'm very fortunate to hold a national role at work, and a lot of that is in Manchester, Greater Manchester, Liverpool, and West Yorkshire. And it is just my opinion that these mayoral things in the areas where I try and recruit from, they just don't seem to work. They're not very welcome in the particular areas. I have concerns about the word significant investment because it has got strings and where the money goes. And given the proposed amount for the footprint of the area that will be merged together, it's not much money across the. We hold a large geographical footprint of England. This proposed council will do, and that's not a lot of money to divide amongst all the little bits and the large bits in the city. It is much money, in my opinion. And I also the comment about we would hold the power over the mayor to stop him doing things that I don't think and one could be replaced. But it would. The worry is it would only then be replaced by somebody that was going to do exactly the same thing. So they're my opinions. I've kept them brief. I have grave concerns with this. Having read some of it as a Councillor Foster, I agree with what Councillor Thacker's had to say, and it might go against the grain to say a little bit of what Councillor Barker said as well. But no, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Angelique Foster? Thank you very much. And I was just going to suggest that for the purpose of the minute, could we have Angelique Foster and Mark Foster, just to make sure, because we don't always have the same views. And yeah, surprise, surprise. Yes, that's right. And I've got to say, I'm struggling with the amendment. And the reason is I was quite happy with the motion that was put forward by Councillor Alex Dale
that we were putting our views forward, varied views, and because the consultation is open until January 10, it gives opportunities to those of us who are a dual hatter or triple hatter or quadruple hatters to formulate their response properly and having looked at every single aspect of the point. But I wanted to talk about with regard to North East Derbyshire. So most of the points I was going to make have been made already, so I'll go over them very quickly. Agree with the principle of bringing more investment into the area. All of us will agree with that, but I'm not convinced that the mayoral system is the one that will facilitate that. And if we look at Leicestershire and Leicester, it's been mentioned, they've declined the offer. There's a reason why they've declined the offer. They've obviously looked at the risks and the benefit and weighed up what was best for their residents and decided that to have a mayor wasn't the best option for their residents. So again, it's been mentioned that it's about powers to improve transport, adult skills, training, housing, environments, and encourage the creation of good quality jobs. Nobody can really go against that, so we all agree with this. But then it says it gives people a greater say about issues that affect them. Well, this is one of the issues that affect people of North East Derbyshire, and they've not been given a choice. They don't have a choice on whether or not they go into the combined authority. So that's not giving them a greater say about issues that affect them. Again, but for me, I've become a councillor because of localism. It's about bringing decision-making as local as possible, and this, to me, is contrary to that. So it's difficult for me to support it. It's adding another layer of decision-making. It's taking that local decision further and further away from local people. And it's been mentioned about this. This is a concern for me as well. I've mentioned there's the potential of extra local tax to be raised by the mayor and business rate as a supplement there. And I've said before that residents will then pay for a parish council, town council, district, a county, and now a mayor. So it's making it more expensive for taxpayers, not cheaper. So unless, and it's been mentioned, unless there's plans, which is not in this first draft, there's plans to remove one of the level, either the district or the county, or perhaps the parish and towns, you know, in future, which would make it a bit cheaper for taxpayers. And governance would be decided at a later stage when it comes to the police and crime commissioners. I'm glad because that's after consultation with the Derbyshire Constabulary and Nottinghamshire Constabulary. So I think it was too big a job, too complicated to bring those police forces together. There's no appetite for that from local police officers or from the chief constable. So, but that is not to say that it's not going to happen. And when it comes to the fire service, so the fire service and the community safety are more or less dealt with under the same banner. There's plans for the East Midlands Combined Authority to discuss with the Fire Authority, Police and Crime Commissioners to identify the appropriate long-term governance model for fire and rescue services in its area. But it refers to the white paper, and the white paper, if you read that on fire, does say that potentially the fire and rescue service would go on under a mayor. So there's plans there, but you just have to read a couple of documents to find out what those plans are. It's not explicit in this paper itself. And just a very small point, but again, very important. I don't agree with the fire service being brought together under one hat, just like I don't agree with the two forces, Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, being brought together. For various reasons. Just to give you a quick example, Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Authority works very well. They have a budget 39.5 million, 21-22, Nottinghamshire 46 million. However, the total reserve for Derbyshire 15.7 million, the Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue 5.7 million. They do struggle to manage their budget well. They've been reported as being in real trouble. I think the chief fire officer and councillors have said that there's a 2 million funding gap consistently. And one councillor was quoted saying that he's looked at the finance and regarding future plans, when it comes to Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue, if our service doesn't do what it needs to do, people will die, people will lose their lives. And I know they're grand jobs, but just to say that bringing those forces together is not collaborations, or equal partners, so we have to be mindful of that.
Thank you. Councillor Kenyon and Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've had a bit more time to look through this now, and in the spirit of the amendment is still about just giving feedback on the consultation, and given that we don't actually have any authority to do anything other than that anyway, it does make sense. I'm very disappointed that we haven't had a proper justification for a mayor. Someone should have written up why a mayor is good and explained it to us. That's not happened. And I definitely also agree that the geography with Nottinghamshire, I don't understand that. So in the spirit of this being feedback on the consultation, I think I will be supporting that amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Lewis.
And this has been a really interesting debate so far. I do agree with Councillor Dale that in order to give the greatest latitude for this council to express their views, I think the original recommendation in the council papers is the best form of doing that. So I certainly can't support the amendment. I think that actually hog ties the authority in making a decent submission and capturing all of these views in particular. There's a few things that I just wanted to cover off that's been raised at various points on today's debate. One of the key ones is that somebody raised that 1.3 billion, which works out at £17 per head within the region, is not massive, but it compares to £8 per head for all residents across the East Midlands currently in terms of investment. So just to cross that off the list. We then talked about the control and power aspect, and control and power being sort of mentioned frequently in that document. It is, because I was talking about bringing control and power.
Councillor, this isn't about the amendment. This is just a speech, sorry.
Well, I'm just covering off the points that were raised as well.
You've already spoken on those, so it's purely just about your comment on the amendment.
Okay, fine.
Are there any other further comments to be made? Councillor Birkin.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. So just a couple of quick points. Councillor Dale mentioned the lack of investment, quite correctly mentioned the lack of investment in our area over the last few years, certainly over the last 12 years. There's been at least 12 opportunities for additional funding to be made available to the problems that are well known in our area. Councillor Kenyon said, what's the justification for a mayor? The justification is it's bribery or coercion. If you want some money, you've got to do what I say from whoever's at the top. At this point in time, not sure who's leading your party at the top end at this point in time. We mentioned again, Councillor Foster Mark mentioned the £17 per person. I think that's shared out from 38 million, that's shared out over the next 30 years. What on earth will 17? And there's no increase, no ongoing increase per annum as part and parcel of that, as I understand it. So what £17 per person is going to buy us in 30 years' time, goodness only knows. The other main problem that I have is it's talking about electing a democratically elected mayor. I think Councillor Dale reiterated the newspeak in this documentation, but democracy is not going to give any people, any individual residents in Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, or wherever they are, the opportunity to vote on this. The consultation will let you say yes or no, and then that will be ignored by the powers that be who want to impose this upon us all. So if we're talking about democracy, there's nothing in this whatsoever at the present time, let alone any future problems that may arise. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Barry, you have the right to reply. Speak.
Thank you, Phil. I've got all sorts planned here about what I was going to say, and you've all said it mainly. But one of the things I would like to say, and it's something that stood out to me when Councillor Dale introduced this to start off with, one of the words he said was it could improve lives in North East Derbyshire, not that it will improve lives. That's a big thing for me. Could's a very funny word to use, so that straight away worries me if you're using that sort of language. But again, we talk about the money and how it's going to work out, and the £17 it's going to come. In 30 years, it'll buy you a packet of crisps. That's what it'll buy you. The fact that we as councillors don't get a vote and we don't get a say on this is completely wrong. That's not democratic whatsoever. We've been elected by people to represent them. If we can't then represent them on this next body, then that's something wrong with that. And the other thing is the people of North East Derbyshire should have a say on this. If you want true democracy, everybody that lives in this district should have a say on where we go with this. And just before I came out, I actually went on this East Midlands devolution site to see what this survey was like. And I'm sure they'll figure it's me that's completed it at the end, but never mind. It gave you nothing. It was closed questions, really. So that if you pressed one thing, it would just automatically take you to the next. And it is not giving you anything. It's giving you no information whatsoever. I've lost where I put it now. Yeah, I mean, it was, I put through, I mean, I have to say, I put strongly disagree all the way through it because it's pointless. You know, the whole thing is pointless. If you're somebody that doesn't know anything about what's going on here and you're just a member of public, you wouldn't understand it. So you'd probably just tick agree because it sounds like we're going to get all this money and we're going to be able to do all these things with all this money that we're going to get. They don't realise that how that money is going to get split down as it goes through, and North East Derbyshire will be right at the very bottom. And if by any chance Leicester and them change their mind and want to come in, well, you can forget North East Derbyshire because there'll be nothing left at all. You won't even get a packet of crisps. So as far as I'm concerned, the recommendations that Councillor Barker put through should stand, and I'd like us to take the vote on that because they do cover what we have the concerns about. Thank you.
I am going to allow Councillor Cupid to say a few words.
Thank you, Chair. It's only a quick one. I think Councillor Gillett probably gave us the spoiler earlier when he declared an interest. Why I didn't at the start, because I thought the recommendations were sufficiently open. And I sort of take issue with some of the Labour members' comments that we've not been able to have a say on this, which was the point of this report. And I thank Councillor Dale for that. And I think the debate, I think it's been quite an interesting debate, the concerns and questions that people have. And I was on county a few months ago, and I supported launching the consultation on this as an opportunity to have that debate and, to answer some of those questions and to give all those involved in the deal the opportunity to answer some of those. But I am a bit disappointed in the amendment, if I'm honest, because I would like the whole sort of minutes, etc., to be put forward. But given the amendment and the detail in it, I always prioritise North East Derbyshire, and so without seeing the final offer of the deal, I don't want to prevent my ability to express an opinion and take a part at a later stage. So I'm also going to abstain. I just want to set that out. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Welton. We can't hear you, Richard. It's very poor.
Okay. It was a point of order. Whichever way the vote goes on the amendment, you'll still be taking speeches from the floor, will you? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just checking on the details. Is that everything on the amendment? Right, so reply to you then, Nigel.
I've got another, no. Well, I think we can move straight to the vote. I think we've got the general idea.
Councillor Dale, you have a right to respond.
No.
No,
Yeah,
no,
Commissioner.
okay. Anyone that's put the motion in does have the right to respond. So, it's not, it's just an amendment, isn't it? So, you know, okay. We are going to be voting on the amendment. Just so we're all very clear. And this is going to be done by roll call. That's correct, yeah. In reverse order.
And just to remind everybody, once we've dealt with the amendments, there will be another vote on the main motion. So this is purely a vote on the amendment. So I'll read your name out. Can you tell me if you're for, against, or abstaining? Councillor P. Wright. Councillor B. Wright.
For.
Councillor Welton. Councillor Thacker.
For.
Councillor Tate.
For.
Councillor Stone.
For.
Councillor Strafford Stevenson. Councillor Shipman.
For. You've missed one, by the way.
My apologies. My apologies, Councillor Windley. Can you give me your answer, please? For. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Ruff. For. Councillor Rouse. For. Councillor Rowe.
For.
Councillor Ridgway. For. Councillor Rennick. Councillor Reader. For. Councillor Powell. Abstain. Councillor Potts. Councillor Platts. Councillor Pickering.
For.
Councillor Parkin.
Abstain.
Councillor Morley.
For.
Councillor Liggett. For. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Lacey.
For.
Councillor Kerry.
For.
Councillor Kenyon.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Hartshorn.
For.
Councillor Hancock.
For.
Councillor Gomez-Reedy. Councillor Gillett.
Abstain.
Councillor Fennell.
For.
Councillor N. Foster.
For.
Councillor A. Foster. Councillor Emmons. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Dayton. Councillor Dale.
Abstain.
Councillor Cupit. Councillor Cooper. Councillor Clough. Councillor Birkin.
For.
Councillor Barry. Councillor Barker. Councillor Armitage.
Abstain.
Councillor Anglin.
Okay, the motion, well, the amendment, let me get the words right. The amendment has been carried. The roll vote was 36 for, 2 against, and 8 abstentions. We'll move on to the main motion, I believe, as amended. Councillor Welton, do you wish to speak?
It's Councillor Richard Welton, Gosforth Valley. I know I'm just covering points already made, but I think it's very important I record my opposition to this top-down government proposal. They originally started these mayoral things with referendum, local democracy, because that's something that people want. And they were all turned down, they were all voted against. It might be different if you're Manchester or Newcastle, but in general, they've always been rejected. So it's top-down imposed, and there's no groundswell of local support. I've been a councillor for 7 years, and this has never, ever been raised by any resident that this is the way forward. It's an extra layer of government with tax raising powers. Those tax raising powers will come in. So it's an extra layer. It will be administered from Nottingham. Nottingham has absolutely nothing that it will want to do with this area. It's been touched on that we also look to Rotherham, Sheffield, other areas. There might be a bit, Derby will get its share, and there might be a bit thrown to Chesterfield or the Freeport M1 rail area down in the south, but nothing will come here. And so effectively, you know, D2N2, I think was very disappointing. I think it didn't work, so why would this work? And in my opinion, it will lead, it's my opinion, it will lead to the abolition of the district council. District councils, and again, I've changed my view over the years, I think do perform an extremely important role. The higher up, the bigger you get, you know, county and the superstructures, the less accountability there is between the councillor and the electorate. So although you may say it's an extra layer of government, the district, what we do, it's an important safety valve, and it's important for locality that we are able to pass over their opinions. Finally, I'm very concerned, and it was touched on with the interrelationship between neighbourhood plans and local plans, between this levelling up bid and the introduction of mayors, because this will lead to some form of traffic light system and mayors where there'll be no local consultation or decision making over major developments in terms of new housing or protection of the green belt. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Shipman?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I'm very pleased that that amendment went through, and we haven't just sat on the fence and tried to be all things to all people with some daft motion about let's pour all our views in, because it would have convoluted our position as a council. They wouldn't have listened to anything we'd said. If one council was saying they're for it, another council was saying they're against it. I'm glad we've got a unified position now, and that motion has passed as it just the amendment just passed as it did. I think we all want devolution. I'd like to think we do in this council, so that we're getting more money for North East Derbyshire. But what we don't want is to be forced down a track by this government on some vanity project where they want to install mayors just to get the money that they could easily give out to local authorities if the political will was there. So I hope we now pass this motion and put our position on record. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, so find my notes, I'm in the right place. We have a motion before us to note the details of the devolution deal with the amendments included, and the process for establishing a combined authority. And we're going to do this by roll call.
You're voting for the main motion this time as amended. The last vote is on the amendment. This is on the main motion as amended.
You can be as confused as you
Oh, we can talk about it again.
Make it mayor.
It's all right.
I will read everybody's name out. Please tell me which way you wish to vote. Councillor P. Wright. Councillor B. Wright. Councillor P. Windley. Councillor Welton. Councillor Thacker. Councillor Tate. Councillor Stone. Councillor Strafford Stevenson. Councillor Shipman. Councillor Ruff. 4. Councillor Rouse. 4. Councillor Rowe. 4. Councillor Ridgway. 4. Councillor Renwick. Councillor Reader. 4. Councillor Powell. Councillor Potts. 4. Councillor Platts. 4. Councillor Pickering. 4. Councillor Parkin. Councillor Morley. 4. Councillor Liggett. 4. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Lacey. 4. Councillor Kerry. 4. Councillor Kenyon. Councillor Jones. 4. Councillor Hartshorn. 4. Councillor Hancock.
4.
Councillor Gomez-Reaney. Councillor Gillett.
Abstain.
Councillor Fennell.
4.
Councillor M. Foster.
4.
Councillor A. Foster. Councillor Emmons. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Dayton. Councillor Dale.
Abstain.
Councillor Cupid. Councillor A. Cooper.
4.
Councillor Clough.
4.
Councillor Birkin.
4.
Councillor Barry.
4.
Councillor Barker. 4. Councillor Armitage. Councillor Ancliffe.
The motion with the amendment has been carried. The result was 36 for, none against, and 10 abstentions. The motion has been carried. Thank you. Moving swiftly on, before I lose my voice completely. Item 8, cost of living response. We now have a presentation on the cost of living crisis response from the Assistant Director of Regeneration and Programmes. So over to Steve Lee, and I suggest that we let him finish the presentation before any questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate you've got a busy agenda. You've already been very active, so I'm just going to give you an overview of the breadth of work that we've been undertaking because of our cost of living challenges that we're facing as a nation. So moving swiftly on, and I've got a ferry in the background going to do the slides for me, I think. Next slide, please, Jenna. It's working. So to start with, we're looking internally. So as Councillor Dale alluded to earlier, we've established a Chair's cross-party cost of living meeting, just so we can meet on a regular basis every 3 or 4 weeks, just to see how we're progressing and to collect the ideas, because we are all in it together. And I've personally found that a very fruitful meeting and quite positive in terms of the input from members around the table. But at an operational level, we've also got an officer group meeting, which formed out of the former financial inclusion group that we had. So we've got oversights at various levels to try and take this very important matter forward. Now, the key thing for us is to take immediate practical actions. So looking at this building, we've recruited some energy champions. Our estates team are walking around doing room by room function reviews and checks, reducing the idle consumption, which basically means turning things off that aren't being used. But we're also looking at reviewing the heating systems. So we've got everything serviced, so it's running at optimum efficiency. But we're also turning the heating off early during the day, whilst maintaining the sort of standards we would expect for staff. And also got some motion sensors in every light within the building. So we must have been moving quite a lot today, whether we knew it or not, because every light now we'll see how we're working. And that's what we've got across all of our facilities. In our leisure centres, we've got LED lighting across the piece. And during the accommodation review, we're changing lights ad hoc, depending on when the moves are taking place, just so we've got lighting that's fit for purpose. I should also mention the swimming pools, as you can see on the slides. We have lowered the temperature in line with tolerances. And I can see that some people have noticed. And we'll measure that by the complaints, but we are within the industry standards, so hopefully that's all to the good, and we'll save us some money, but keep the facilities open so we can keep serving the community. So moving on to the next slide, looking at externally, this is where we realise that we are just one of many actors that are supporting our community. So there's a raft of other public, private, and voluntary sector organisations supporting our residents and businesses. And what we don't want to do is reinvent the wheel. So the cross-party leaders meeting is very clear on that. We recognise that we need to be efficient and focused and responsible in terms of where we're focusing our resources. So what we do need to do is find out who else is working on those supports and get that message out there. So we've adopted the signpost for obvious reasons in terms of what we can share with our colleagues. So information, advice and guidance is key. We can get that out to colleagues, as I say, but also to businesses and residents. We are keen on supporting and providing practical assistance, which I'll move on to, and also providing grants. So some of those grants will be to groups. So we've got the community action grants that have been established for a few years. We will support, for example, warm hubs. We'll accept applications for that. But there may be grants as well that some of our partner agencies can give to struggling households, which we will continue to publicise wherever we can. And then one of the things that we are trying to do is be flexible with our residents, tenants and local businesses to create flexible financial payment plans. We recognise people are struggling, the rates for energy costs are rocketing, and we're mindful that if people come to us early, we can try and resolve and support them balance their finances in the short term, and we'll do our best to help. So next slide, please. So going back to the signposting, we're about to start the bombardment of information. So we've got thousands of these flyers in the process of being printed, which we will make available to yourselves as members, and so you can give them to residents as you do your rounds. We've also got some very small calling cards as well, which say struggling with the cost of living, help is at hand. So it's got our email address, it's got our phone numbers on, so people can contact the council, so you can refer people on, because we recognise the earlier we know about some of these challenges, the more we can do about it. We don't want people to hit crisis point before they come to us. We want to get in there early, because if we can't help, we might know somebody else who can. And that's our key mantra, really. So it is, as I say, it's getting that message out as much as possible. We had a very high quality edition of the news went out recently with an 8-page special for the cost of living crisis. We understand that's been very well received by our colleagues at county level, as has our website. And that's just giving information about people reducing the bills, energy saving tips, paying bills, help for business, and useful contacts operating, plus for services operating across the area. So we do know we've had over 1,400 hits on our website. We've got a banner on every page, which you can't really see very well on the slides, but this red banner here, that's everywhere. So people just one click away once they come into the council to get that help and advice, or they can go old school, just pick the phone up, and we'll do our best to help. So we have got a range of other issues on the website, because we recognise that it's not just about funding and energy efficiency, that being scam aware is key. A lot of the funding that's coming from the government is paid at source directly to people, but not everybody knows that. And I know I've received some texts saying, get in touch with me because we can help sort out your rebate. And we want to try and burst that bubble, just so people are confident in how the processes work and aren't taken advantage of by unscrupulous people. And we've also got in there help to mitigate for domestic violence, mental health challenges, access to food, and more guidance on the warm spaces initiatives, because it was lauded as a potential solution, but everybody saw it slightly different. So we've got different information packs on there, how to run a warm hub, but then we've also got some of the practical help and advice in there, and some of the funds that our colleagues at Derbyshire County Council can support groups. So we're trying to get that message out there as widely as possible. And the comms team are working very hard to do at least 5 social media posts per week with the top tips. So we're all grateful to them. With the 8-page supplement that was in the news, we are creating a standalone document which will soon be going out into the community. So as well as these flyers and some posters, they'll be available in your local shops, pharmacies, libraries. We've got people going out today putting those across the district. So they will be going out to parish councils as well. But if you needed anything, please get in touch with the team and we'll pass that on. So I've mentioned, as Councillor Dale alluded to at the opening of the meeting, just let us know and we can see where we can help. So that's the information. And then if we move on to the practical help that we can offer, our colleagues at Ritnell Homes are going out and undertaking energy assessments for tenants, and to offer practical support so people in the most energy efficient housing that they can live in. And we are also putting on warm hubs guidance on the website, as alluded to, but what we are trying to do is put more boots on the ground. So we've got 2 new community outreach workers that are being recruited using external funding. So we've been looking to access that. And we've also seconded an officer to support our home assistance coordinator. So that's, again, some more help so we can get around to see more tenants and residents across the district, and also hopefully to visit local groups, for example, luncheon clubs. Our resident benefits team have been very busy getting out the energy rebates to all our residents. So we've been as reactive as we can to get that out. And we continue to access and promote grant opportunities for home efficiencies. So Ritnell Homes are currently leading on hundreds of £1,000s of bids to to D2N2, if I can mention that name, to get some funding to do some retrofitting for houses. But more locally, we are also promoting schemes such as Eco 4 Flex, which sounds a bit strange, but it's not strange when you're giving people money to insulate your homes and get new windows, etc. So we've seen what we can do to help signpost the opportunities. And then finally, the last slide, we are mindful that we want to keep our communities thriving and keep our businesses open. So we have developed a business-focused energy efficiency pack, which businesses can look at top tips. We also working with colleagues across Derbyshire to see if we can commission some energy audits to be undertaken, so people know where their building could be improved, so they can harness other funding and take that forward. And then somebody mentioned earlier about UK Share Prosperity. Well, we're still waiting for the funding. The clock's ticking, but I have been assured last week that the decision will be made in due course. So we have been trying to be creative with that funding. So we had to put the bid in July of what we wanted to achieve. But in the meantime, we've been trying to amend some of the rules and the guidance that we want to include. So, for example, we've got a shop funding scheme. So rather than just fitting out the shops, we'll now consider double glazed windows, energy efficient doors, etc. We've got business advice schemes, which will include energy efficiency. We've included energy efficiency mitigations, whether that's solar panels or new windows, etc., in our community venue and village halls fund. And we've got some funding for the third sector to deliver for inclusive communities, which again might be advice and help and guidance for people who are struggling within the district. So we are continually looking to evolve in the same way that we've tinkered with the Shared Prosperity. So we're not resting on our laurels, but the key thing to reiterate is get in touch with us if you do know of anybody with any issues, and if you've got any good ideas, again, feed that in, because we're very welcome to listen to that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to open the floor. Councillor Barker.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. I've said this in other meetings, and I'll reiterate it in here. I don't think we can do any more than what we're doing as a council. I think it's excellent work, and I'd like to compliment everybody involved, the leadership, and obviously all the officers. And reiterate that last point, that if we know anybody that needs help, and let people know, because we'll do our best. And thanks again.
Anyone? Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, to pick up on Steve's last point about not resting on your laurels, I think, no, you absolutely haven't. It's first class. And I think I'm going to go back to the point that Martin made, I don't know if it was the last meeting or a couple of meetings ago, in the fact that this is actually the benefit of people working together rather than having an autocratic one set of decisions. It's a success there. Obviously, we can't ever become complacent, but I think we're moving in the right direction. And all we can try and do is get this message out there and see how many people we can help with it. So thank you for everything you've done.
Councillor Reader.
Yeah, Steve, it's absolutely brilliant work. I agree with what you're saying, Ross. It's that cross-party working together. I just want to sort of comment on the 2 community outreach workers, Steve. I think that's brilliant. I think you're going to fill their work many times over. With their role, is that where they'll be going out to actually visit people in their homes and support them with, things like if they're struggling with form filling, that kind of stuff, because that kind of work, I work in social care, so I completely understand their work is absolutely crucial, because people can be sat really worrying about something, or even not even understanding that they are entitled to certain, benefits that they can claim. They don't get, what they can actually get to get that support that they need. So just having somebody that can sit and show them the way and give them a little bit of direction is really crucial. But I think they're going to have their work cut out. Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you. And if I can answer that, Chair, that's exactly the role, is to go out and be that trusted face that won't be in a shirt and tie necessarily. It's somebody who's going out there who can help, and hopefully they'll go viral. So they can give one of these cards, and I should have said that there's a box of cards for each one of you to be able to take today, and they can pass it on. So using jealousy as a motivator, saying Mrs. Smith had it, she's okay, the council supported it, she's given me this card, and let's get out there, because that's sometimes more effective hearing from a neighbour than it is directly from the council.
Councillor Ridgway?
Mine's just a very brief one about the documentations more than anything, the leaflets that you're handing out, because I think it's really good. But my concern is, what do you do? Okay, most people can read, but there's people that are blind. So are you looking at putting Braille for these people? Because that is something that, you know, you have to consider, because they can't always access the computer. They may not be able to see the computer. And I think that's something that we need to be looking at.
We always include the access statement on our flyers, so hopefully people will have a friend or colleague or family member who will be able to signpost them. We do put, I think that's one of the reasons we go out through social media and also the website, because people have readers which can access the work online. So everything that we've got here as a piece of paper is within information that we've already got on our website. The website is actually better because we can update it with 2 or 3 times a day, so it's as most recent as possible. So hopefully that somebody won't be totally isolated in terms of receiving the message. I think the only thing that we're not doing is radio broadcasts, but apart from that, we are trying every avenue that we can, and hopefully by having the referral cards where people will talk within their communities, that might hook in, and then if somebody can ring the council, and that's their door in, and we can sit down with them on the phone to go through the support needs that they've got.
Any other questions for Steve? Councillor Dowd?
Thanks, Chair. Just really to echo some of the thanks already. Really grateful for the opposition group leaders, their input through the meetings. But in particular, I want to thank Steve himself, who has really been a champion for this. And it takes such a lot of cross-council working, and that one team ethos that we always hear Lee blurting out about. But Steve's been the absolute linchpin of that, because he really has brought lots of different areas of the council together, and very ably assisted by Jeremy, who has really got the bit between his teeth around this issue and has been really pushing the council to do more and more and pulling this together. So a big thank you to all of those involved. And obviously, as discussed, we need all of us as elected members to push these messages out in our community. So your support with that will be very much appreciated. And if there are any more ideas, by all means, feed them in. We're always open to considering those. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. There's nothing else, Steve. I'd like to say thank you very much, and thank you to your team. It's brilliant work. And I'm sure we would all like to note those as a job well done. Thank you. Moving on to item 9, Treasury Management Update. And I would like the Leader of the Council to speak on it. So over to you, Councillor Dowd.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides an update on the Council's Treasury Management activities from April to September for this year, and it's solely to note those. Appendix 1 details the current borrowing activity and interest paid on external borrowing, as well as providing an update on the Council's investments and the interest these will bring. And you will also be aware of the current volatility in the economy, and this is impacting on the Treasury management decisions we're taking and will need to take over the medium term. The finance team are working very closely with our appointed Treasury management advisors to minimise the impact of the interest rate exposure on debt and to maximise returns on investments during this time. I'm happy to move recommendations at 6.1. And if there's any questions of detail, I'd encourage you to direct them at Jane, who will
Are there any questions? Just hide, Jane. Oh, thank you, Charlotte. Other questions? Okay. Do you wish to say no? No? We haven't got one like this. So all the members are happy to agree with this? Yep, thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Move on, that's all been approved. Item 10, allocation of places to committee. Our agenda deals with the allocation of places to committees. It is the report of the monitoring officers, so I would like Sarah Sternberg to go through it for us.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to say much. As members are aware, the number of seats in each political party has changed. Appendix 2 shows the latest figures and allocation. It is now for each group to make their nominations to the relevant committees. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dare, is there anything you'd like to say?
Happy to move the recommendations. I was going to suggest that we delegate to the monitoring officer the final movements of those people. If I were to email, for example, the monitoring officer after the meeting to say who is going to be removed from what committee, and the monitoring officer just make those changes rather than Paul Kemp have to go through each different item. If everyone's happy with that.
Thank you, gentlemen. Lovely. Is everyone happy with that? And someone to second that? Councillor Cuthbert?
You're all right, yeah. Very well.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we'd just like to show of hands, so everyone's happy. Brilliant, thank you. Item 11, Stonebroom Community Governance Review. This is the report of the draft recommendation to the Council of the Stonebroom Community Governance. A member of the working group, along with councillors Richard Welton and Mark Foster, who is the chair. So I would like Councillor Foster to now speak on the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, following the remarks of Councillor Birkin earlier, yeah, absolutely. I understand exactly what he meant by it's quite a large report and we haven't had a great deal of time to look at it, but it is all in there. And this is not the end of the actual consultation. So just in addition to what our monitoring officer said earlier. The background of this, we received a valid petition. The council received a valid petition, 187 signatures on a petition requesting a separate parish council for Stonebroom. And as explained at the last council meeting on the 12th of October, the district council is required to carry out a community governance review as per the section 83 of the Local Government and Public Involvement in Health Act 2007. A Stonebroom Community Governance Review Working Group was set up with myself as chair, together with Councillor Welton and Councillor Ruff. Officers working with the group were Sarah Sternberg, our Assistant Director and Monitoring Officer, and Donna Jawad, our Elections Manager, who might be asked to answer some questions later, and Leah King, our Managing Director. Our role as a working party was to consider the consultation received in relation to the petition request and make draft recommendations to the council, which these are. As a group, we followed guidance from the Boundary Commission on carrying out the review, and during the process, we also took external legal advice from Wakeman's solicitors. The legislation itself sets out that the council must ensure that the community governance within the area under review should be reflective of the identities and interests of the community in that area, and effective and convenient. We were also required to take into account the following influential factors: the impact of community governance arrangements on community cohesion, and the size, population and boundaries of a local community and parish. Now, a large part of our work that we carried out as a group was to consult the electorate and the people of the parish. However, whilst the council has a statutory duty to consult, the legislation and statutory guidance does not specify how we do this. So as a working group, we took the decision to have a very robust consultation exercise and do more rather than less. The consultation included information on our own district website, including the survey and frequently asked questions, information on the Shirland and Higham Parish Council website, the same. Then we targeted social media posts to the Stonebroom residents, including reference to the survey. That was something that was reposted several times, just to try and cover everybody, get as many people involved in it as we could. A leaflet then was sent out to all households in Shirland and Higham, and that included the survey. That included Stonebroom as well. We then held a public meeting on the 1st of November in Stonebroom, which was very well attended. We had around 50 people there, a very robust discussion. Some issues were raised at that meeting to do with the first leaflet, how it went out. We responded to that, and that was on the Wednesday. We responded to the concerns immediately by sending out a second leaflet, including the same survey, which was hand-delivered by officers to all households in Stonebroom. That was only 4 days later. So we were quite proactive, and we reached out as much as we could to get as much response back from the community. Onto the outcome of the consultation exercises, we received a total of 161 responses. And in terms of the electorate for the whole of Shirland and Higham Parish, including Stonebroom and Mickley, that's 4,034. Now, 161 accounts for 4% of the electorate. So all told, we got 4% of the electorate reply. Out of that 161, 74% expressed a wish for a separate parish council. So the percentage was there, but obviously that, if you take it as it is, 74% of the 4%, effectively 3% of the whole electorate wanted a separate parish council. As a group, we didn't just look at for and against, we read the individual responses, we had them out on the table and read them all to get an understanding of what people were actually feeling. Some of those are in the appendices which are attached to the report, as you'll be able to see. Other relevant figures, I think I've already mentioned this already, about the 50 people that attended the actual public meeting on the 1st of November. We know that they were from the area because they were asked to sign in at the beginning of the meeting. One figure worth bearing in mind for those that don't know the area, there's 4,034 people, electors in the parish, and out of those 4,034, 1,472 are in Stonebroom. So that gives you an idea of how it's made up. The report details the findings, arguments and considerations given to those by the working group, with information also being contained within the appendices. Now to our actual conclusion. We took into account the fact that a petition had been triggered to carry out the review. 187 people had signed this, so there's obviously a strong feeling there. There was strong feelings supporting the proposal for a parish in Stonebroom from some residents. The response to the consultation were limited to a very small proportion of local residents, as I said earlier, 4% of the electorate, and the responses were mixed with a significant number of those who did respond not supporting change. Having considered and weighed up all of these factors, we considered that community cohesion and identity would be best served by not establishing a new parish for Stonebroom. Put simply, there was no groundswell of public opinion. It just wasn't enough people. It wasn't just a quantity, it was a qualitative exercise as well. So we didn't get the response that we needed to be able to come into this council, that we set up that new parish council for Stonebroom. So I asked the council to approve this draft recommendation. We then take it back to the electorate for stage 2. So whatever these draft recommendations are here, if the council agrees them, we then take back for a further stage of the consultation, and then it comes back again to council in January. And much as has been said earlier, I'd appreciate any technical and legal questions. Hopefully they'd be able to be answered by Sarah Sternberg or Donna Goward at the rear of the council chamber. I'd be happy to cover the questions when I reply. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to actually second this motion on behalf. A lot of soul searching went into this exercise, and it wasn't an easy decision. But overall, we have to look at what is best for the electorate, and there are ways forward. I've got several hands have gone up, so I'll open the floor with Councillor Wilton and then Councillor Lewis and Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for taking over my seconding of the motion. You relieved a burden from me. So my comments, it makes it easier for me because I'd like to make some comments which aren't formally from the working group. There's some observations I made as a member of that working group and in supporting the recommendation in the context. I'm a great believer in locality, I really am. But the recommendation is what it is. So I wanted to look at either ways forward for those people who believe that Stonebroom should have a separate council, or indeed some sort of accommodation which meets their needs. The first one is to note there is nothing to stop having a referendum. The district council can't have a referendum, but the parish can. So there's nothing to stop the parish itself having a referendum on this issue, and obviously that would carry weight. Next one is just an obvious one. 2023 new council, see what the composition is, what the manifesto of individuals are. And again, although in theory there's a 2-year moratorium, it's not a strict moratorium, it can be reopened if the district council saw that there was, a momentum of views for this for this initiative. In this guidance, which I think I was given by the officers, there's a section here at the end, 146, community groups. Community groups, I believe, can be members of committees of a parish council, and council can be represented on community groups as well. I know there's groups like the Civic Society in Drumfield. There's other groups that are very, very active, and they can be geographically active. On to some other ones. You could change the name, lobby to change the name of the parish to include Stonebroom and Higham, and again, to recognise that it consists of 4 villages. Yeah, sorry, thanks. Thank you for the correction. It's my handwriting. And then the next one is probably the most important thing. You can apply for the parish to become a warded council. And again, I think what I got was on the basis of just a pro forma of 10 councillors, 2 or 3 then could be representing that village Stonebroom. So that would give more accountability, and it would recognise the distinctive nature of the villages. And finally, you could apply, again, you have to go through the same process of consultation to be a parish, but not a council. That again would give you an annual assembly of residents once a year. So there are measures that can be done either as an interim measure leading to more support for the idea of a separate council, or indeed an accommodation to reflect the individuality of the villages. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to put on record my thanks to the working group, and in particular to Councillor Foster for a very thorough discussion and walk through the report there as the County Council for that division. I do have sort of some concerns about this, and Councillor Foster articulated those really well about the small number of people who engage with this particular consultation, and the very small numbers of people that came forward. I would have longer term concerns about the viability of any sort of particular parish councils as they split in the future, leaving relatively small numbers of people, and people who would be actively engaged in any future parish councils as well, should that split have happened. So on the whole, listening to Councillor Welton and his ideas for going through the process, name change, looking at warding or becoming an active group that's focused on Stonebroom, I think is probably the best way forward. So overall, I can't argue with the recommendations within this report. And once again, I'd just like to thank the working group for their work.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Oh, thank you. Again, I know there's been a lot of work done on this, and the officers both in the democratic services looking at the whys and wherefores for the North or the Working Party. I don't profess to know that area really well. I had a spell being chair at community partnerships way back, but I know Stonebroom, it does stand on its own, and it doesn't link very well with Higham, wherever that is. But anyway, I don't think it's in our gift, to be honest, to turn this down. If 50 people turn up to a meeting in North Wingfield, I think that's a big success. That is bunting out. 50 people in one room, in a community like Stonebroom, that means there's some passion for that. So I just want some advice, really, Sarah. Where does it leave? I know the recommendation stands there to not establish a separate parish council. If this meeting today votes against that recommendation, where does it leave us?
Thank you. Yes, and you can't actually vote the opposite way, because that would obviously negate the motion. What you'd effectively be doing is sending it back to the working group to look again, perhaps carry out more consultation, etc., with the reasons why you want that done.
Okay.
And could I just say that would mean we wouldn't hit the May elections?
And the other one, just out a bit of fun, how can you call a referendum, a parish call a referendum, if you ain't got a parish? That threw me a bit, that one.
Yeah. It's the Shirland and Higham Parish Council which could hold a referendum.
Okay, councillor Cupid, followed by councillor Reader, then councillor Gillett.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll be honest with you, I've really wrestled with this decision. And whilst I've now sort of decided which way to go and I've sort of been listening to the debate, I would say I recognise and I accept a lot of the points that have been raised, and this really is in the balance for me. And I've basically just decided to focus on a couple of points that have sort of made my mind up. Throughout this process, I've consciously not expressed an opinion. Firstly, because I could see both the pros and cons to it that have been mentioned, but primarily because as one of the ward members, I thought it was my responsibility to listen. So I've tried to speak to as many residents on the matter as possible to get preferences, not just in terms of a yes or no of the separate councils, but also the reasons that people have got. And for me, I think there's two key questions. The first one is, would a separate parish council actually make sense? Whilst not in comparison to the big town councils, I do think that, as a lot of the responses highlight, this is quite a large parish overall, especially compared to even Brackenfield and Wessington, that are just in the same ward, which have 200 and 500 residents. And I know it's debated in the report, but it is, to me, Stonebroom is a clear area. I think you've mentioned that, Councillor Barker, with its own identity that is under consideration for a parish council here. It's not an individual street or anything like that that's asking for a parish council. That would cause me quite concern. But it is, Stonebroom is already a village in its own right, and it does have its own community groups and clubs and works with other areas both in and out of the parish. So the second question for me, and this is the key one that I've sort of used really, then becomes, is there a wish for it? And I take points of the working group, and I think it is a balance. Because as Councillor Lewis said, at the base level, you want to make sure there are enough residents with the time and enthusiasm to put themselves forward for election as a parish councillor, particularly if you have an extra council. And for me, this is where I've put the most weight on the consultation responses. I've spent a lot of time over the weekend reading through all the appendix responses, and I take and accept the report in, the points in the report and the debate that the response rate has been relatively limited. But I think that's in the context of the whole parish, and I am swayed by the still strong number of replies in quite a short period of time, and we've mentioned the reasons for that, so I don't criticise that, and by the strength of feeling an overall vote in this case. And so that's probably the most compelling argument for me here. And I know there are other factors that we need to weigh up, but the biggest one for me that came through in the consultation responses, and to be fair, it's one I've seen in practice as a ward member since 2015, is that there are a lot of different villages in this parish, and the parish council always has a need to balance, as we do as a district council as a whole, the different communities of Shirland, Higham or Higham, Stonebroom, Mickley and Toad Hole Furnace as well, which is quite often forgotten. And very often they do want the same things, and it's really easy, and they share facilities, but sometimes they do want and need different things. And I've heard that frustration in all the different villages, even despite the best efforts of the parish council. And I would just take this moment just to pay tribute to the current chair of the parish council and the majority of the parish councillors, who I do work closely with, and I know that they're trying to do the best for the whole parish and work tirelessly, hours and hours and meetings in this regard. And so I'm swayed by the sort of strength of feeling here. I think the very fact that there's a sizable group of residents who've taken the time to have their say, and that they've put forward, a rational argument to me and want to get involved and be active in the community, and that influences me. So for me, and it is in the balance, I've sort of listened and it's not changed my mind today. I'm going to do what I said at consultation and what I've said to residents all the way through. And I'm going to follow the majority of consultation responses. So I can't support the draft recommendation today, as I would support the responses in favour of a separate Stonebroom Parish Council. But having said that, I just want to make just a couple of final points on a wider level. I think that today is a big decision one way or another, but I am confident there is a way forward, whichever way we go today and whichever way the Chamber decides. There's so much that unites all the parishes I've mentioned, not least many generations, families, friends, including my own, that live across them. And so as long as I'm one of the ward members, and I think this applies to Councillor Lewis, Liggett and Rowe as well, if the decision is made to form a separate parish council in due course, to me, it's not a declaration of independence with any of Trump's wall or anything like that. And I'll support close working and collaboration in the same way we already do across the different parishes of the ward to share costs, resources, and hopefully good rather than bad ideas. And I think that already happens, you know, in and out of the parish with Morton too, that neighbours Stonebroom, and the community activities that I mentioned. But equally, if the decision of the chamber today isn't to go for a sort of separate parish council, to pursue that further, I'll continue to try and work with the parish council groups and residents, try and canvass a wider section of opinion, and to work on some of the solutions that have been sort of mentioned, in terms of trying to solve some of the concerns raised. So that I just wanted to put that in, saying that it's not the be all and end all today to me, and it is in balance. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Reader?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? Yeah. I think for me, Charlotte, you've summed it up really. You know, community identity is such a huge thing for people. Where you come from, where you live, it's within you, and it's so important to have that. So if you're not identifying with another part of that community, you do have to weigh that up and consider it. And like you say, you've got that strong opinion that's coming through from quite a number of people that are raising that they don't see themselves identifying with that other section. It's sad, but they've raised it. So I think for me, that is a really key point that is sort of making my mind up in which way I would be going. So again, I have to sort of say I can't really support the recommendation, because for me that strong feeling is coming through from those residents, and I have to sort of go with what Councillor Barker's saying. He's saying that there's that opinion there. They want to see their own parish council and their own identity within it. So I've wrestled with it as well. Councillor Welton brought it up earlier, forming that identity within the name as well, as a way forward. And I appreciate all the work that's gone into it, but again, you've got strong opinion there, and it's coming readily, that they want to stand alone, and you can see that when you just drive through Stonebroom. It is a standalone community, isn't it? That's my opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Goodett, then Councillor Hancock, then Councillor Kitchener.
Yeah, can I thank Councillor Cupid for her contribution? It's been really, really helpful, to be honest with you. I came into this meeting minded to vote against it, but I wasn't 100% sure, prepared to listen to what was said. But I've heard what she said, and that's the conclusion I've drawn from that. The responses are clearly overwhelmingly in favour. We're all up for election next May. If we get 65–75% of the vote, we'll all be grateful, and that to me is overwhelming. The difficulty seems to be the low turnout, the 4%, which is an interesting concept when it comes to consultations, and I'll see whether another authority applies that if it doesn't get a big turnout for its consultation as well. But if 4% is a worrying threshold, I personally don't think it is, because as Councillor Barker said, if you suddenly get 50 people in a room arguing for the same thing in a community, that is massive these days. It just doesn't happen. And to get 161 responses, I think, is massive as well, to be honest with you as well. Particularly when I suspect most of them, looking at the report, came from the community that's most affected by it, and the community that most wants this change. The whole purpose of parishes, to me, is that they cover discrete communities. They are the voice of that community in a way that we are not, because we straddle communities. I cover 5 parishes and 5 different communities, and I as a county councillor, I have to balance that. I cover 3 as a district councillor, again, I have to balance that. But parish councils just represent those communities and nothing else. The other aspect that Councillor Foster alluded to is there's the quantity side of it, the sheer number of people taking part, but there's also the quality side of it. And what would the community have to have done, not just get more people to take part in it, but what more would they have to have done to demonstrate that they want it? In terms of the criteria, it would be interesting to know what the panel thought of that. And then my question really is a technical question for Sarah Sternberg. If we were to vote against this, what happens next? Those of us who want to make sure
that perhaps they can, or give them the presumption is that they have a parish and consultation takes place on the presumption that it will take place or then it won't take place. What do we need to do in terms of procedurally to do that? Do we just simply vote against it, or do we have to put down an amendment?
If you vote against the draft recommendations, you obviously can't, as I said previously, put an alternative opposite recommendation in place. You would have to send it back to the working group to reconsider and perhaps reconsult. So I would suggest that's what you would do. You would put in a recommendation to return it to the working group and for them to reconsult.
So just need, sorry, it just needs one of us who have spoken this way. Perhaps if Councillor Cupid wants to do that, I'll be more than happy to second it for.
You would need to vote on the main recommendation first. Councillor Hancock?
Thank you, Chair. This is kind of the opposite of what we were talking about earlier, isn't it? Because this is putting power into the hands of very, very local people. No criticism of anyone, either the working group or any parish council whatsoever. But I speak with people in Old Tupton, which is carved up between three parishes. We have Hasland and Winsick, which are part of Grassmore Parish Council. Again, they feel that they've lost their identity, and the people in Stonebroom are telling us the same thing. Totally take on board what Mark has said, that it is a very low turnout, but equally so, if we had that turnout in the general election and 74% of people voted, that would be the result. So I think it's impossible for us not to recognise that. The feeling is there, people are wanting it. I think it, in my honest opinion, I think it's wrong of us to deny it to them, and I will be taking Councillor Gillett's position here and recommending that it goes back to go back to the working group.
Councillor Shipman?
It's said what I'm going to say.
Councillor Fennell, then Councillor Thacker.
I'm councillor of the district next to Hill and that area. I believe it has got its own identity. It's now a village in its own right. Sherland and Stonebroom are large enough now to be self-sufficient. I do think Stonebroom deserves that opportunity to become a separate parish.
Thank you, Councillor Thacker.
Thank you, Chair. We've just had a debate earlier on about devolution. And now here we are talking about somebody else who wants to have the right to their own power and so on, control of their own community. So it feels very ironic to me that we're even now thinking that we might not let them have that chance. I just want to see clarification about the way that we're voting, though, because when we did have item 7, the devolution deal update, at that point we were allowed to have recommendations thrown into the mix, and then we voted on those recommendations, which led to something else. So why now, when we've got item 11, can we not add recommendations? I don't understand why this is different from what we just did at item 7. So I would like to think that we could actually have recommendations here, because we've got to facilitate this moving forward. And that if the people of Stonebroom want, I'll call it independence, they can they have what's rightfully theirs. So could we just try that, please?
Yes. What you would be doing here is, without doing any further work, saying you disagree with the working party that's been set up to look at the matter. It should go back to the working party for them to look at. If you're referring to the Devo deal decision earlier, that wasn't an opposite, that wasn't a negative amendment. That was one that was focusing on the consultation in a different way. It was not the same.
Thank you. I'm just looking at this if I've got anybody else. No, it's Councillor Barry.
Sorry. You said we'll miss the May election, and is that massive? I mean, even if we recommend this, they wouldn't.
Well, no. Yeah. Is it working? Yes. If you remember the last council meeting, it was, the timetable was set up and it was a very tight timescale to try and get it to the May elections if the new parish council is decided upon. But yes, you haven't got that decision today, therefore we couldn't meet a timetable to get it ready for the May elections, whatever decision you took in January.
Point of order, Chair. Can I ask another question?
Is it for
It is
clarification?
clarification.
Can I ask then, if we were to vote for this motion of 22, if we were to vote for it, it goes out for consultation. If the responses that come back in say that no, we still want a separate parish, at the next meeting in January, could we then vote for the creation of a separate parish at that stage? Because the whole purpose of the consultation is to ask people what they think. If they say that they don't agree with this recommendation, is that the end of the process completely? Or can we then go ahead with the creation of a separate parish for? I'm just trying to think whether we can overcome this timing difficulty.
Yeah, and certainly January the 30th council was set to achieve that. Off the top of my head, I would imagine you could do that, but I would have to look at it to give a definitive answer.
Chair.
Is it a clarification?
Yeah, and I think the monitoring officer's interpretation of that rule is wrong because we are voting on recommendations here. The motion is not, we will not allow that to continue. It's a recommendation from a working group to say that they recommend to us, the full council, that we won't go down that route. At any point, us as the actual authority, which is full council, turn that recommendation to something else. It's not like a motion where it's calling on a specific thing. They're just recommending to full council something, which I think we can overturn. And I think we could change that motion to say that we disagree with that working party and that we think there should be a further consultation for the people of Stonebrook.
Just to clarify, you want to be able to move an amendment?
Yeah, if we can amend, sorry, we can amend the motion with the recommendation on to say that we disagree with the working party's assumptions or recommendation, and that we think that it should go to consultation, the further consultation bit, which is what, you know, I think we can, because it's only a recommendation from that working
So
party.
you moved and seconded that. So
Yeah,
there's a motion on the table.
In that case, I amend that motion to say that we disagree with that working party's assumptions and that it should, with this council agreeing that it should be devolved, whatever you want to call it, separated.
Negative of the motion on the table.
But we can turn down any recommendations and change them as we see fit.
You can turn them down, but you can't just amend a motion to the opposite. No, you can't. You can't negate the motion.
Councillor Barry.
Yeah, can I just ask, if we, the working party are told to go back and revisit it, and then they come back and say, well, we're staying with what we said in the first place, what happens? Because there's got to be a remit somewhere for those people of Stonebroom to be able to have their voice heard. And if you've got 3 people that are the working committee, they've given us this recommendation, so they've done the work, and I'm not knocking your work, but you've done the work that you think it is, and you've come up with this result. So what difference would it be? Because you're probably going to get the same people coming back again, the same people attending your meetings, same people, you know, replying to you. What would you be doing that's different that would make you change your mind to come back and say, well, actually, yeah, we do think we should be able to do it? How does that work? Because I can't see you going away and getting anything any different to what you've got now. So we've got to have a way forward of moving this so that the people of Stonebroom can have, because it sounds to me the majority of the people in this room believe that Stonebroom should have their own parish. Now, if that's the case, why are we messing about? Because going backwards and forwards is not going to help the people of Stonebroom. And, you know, regardless of dates, we've got to find a way forward with it. And I think what we perhaps should do is get the feeling of this room about what they think about it, and then actually have a way forward to amend this so that we can pass what the majority of this council want.
Okay, we're going to adjourn for 5 minutes so it can be reconsidered and comfort break thrown in at the same time. No tea, I'm sorry, no tea. You can share one of my lozenges. As I'm sure you all agree, this is an extremely important issue for the local community. And we have several members of the public here today who have asked to address the council. In order to do this, I intend to adjourn the meeting for a short time, and I'm prepared to allow 3 people to speak. They will each have 3 minutes, and the clerks will inform them when they have 30 seconds left. I have already spoken to them, so I think they're lined up for who's speaking to what. I'm going to start with Councillor Lomax.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm Alice Lomax. I'm a member of Shirlington Higham Parish Council, and I'm a resident of Stoneborough. I just want to share some of my experience as a parish councillor in that particular council, and tell you why I'm in favour of Stoneborough having its own parish council. First of all, it's an issue of size. We have over 4,000 electors in our parish, and when you consider that about 80% of parishes in England have populations of about 2,500, we are overly large. And that leads to a structural problem, which means that as far as Stoneborough residents are concerned, the setup in terms of our local government, our parish, isn't working for us. That means that as electors, Stoneborough is only represented by a third of the total electorate for the actual parish, which means that there are about 4 Stoneborough councillors against 12 of the rest, as a third, more or less, of the parish councillors. And what happens is that, and from my experience, that when issues have come up that are very important to Stoneborough residents, these have been consistently ignored and thwarted, simply because we've been outvoted, and simply because the issues that have come from Stoneborough residents have been rejected on the grounds of their provenance.
You have 30 seconds left.
Okay, so I think it's important to tell you that as far as what Stoneborough residents say to me is they feel disenfranchised and they don't have a real voice through the present parish structure. So I hope you'll listen to what's been said from us as residents, and that you will give us our voice and regain some of the trust that has been lost in local democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have another speaker here. It's Mrs. Julia Smith.
Hi, I've lived in Stoneborough 26 years and I was at the meeting. There were 50 people there, but the guy that seems to think that they were all in favour of it, I'm not sure they were. I think there was a lot of mixed messages, and I think a lot of people in Stoneborough don't really understand what it will mean, whether it's for the good. I'm still on the fence myself, but I think more people need to know more. The leaflets that came through the door didn't really explain it very easily for a lot of people. That's all.
Thank you. I have room for one other speaker if someone else wishes to speak. No? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Cupid, few words.
Thank you, Chair. I think based on, thank you for the adjournment. I think based on the discussion and sort of taking into account resident feedback, the proposal, if yourself and Councillor Foster are happy to amend the draft recommendation, is basically exactly what the resident has just said. Apologies, can't remember again. That basically we go back out to consultation on this, but we make it an open-ended one. So we say, look, these are the responses we've had so far, and go back out to consultation, delegating it back to the working group to sort of do the mechanics of that. And as part of that, more information can be given about what a parish council would mean. And then also it provides people an opportunity, those who haven't responded, to have that say that, you know, oh, it is leaning as part of the consultation towards a separate parish council. And at that point, a lot of people can come forward and say, oh, we're not sure about that. Or a lot of people can come forward and say, yeah, I think that's the right way. I'd be happy if I think Councillor Foster's got the amended recommendation. Don't ask me to read it. I'd be supportive of that approach. If you're happy to amend that.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Cupid. Before talk on the amendment. I'll speak just briefly on some of the points that were brought up. There was only one question which I'll come to. We've heard Councillor Barker said they don't want it, and you mentioned about, I think I've just covered this in the break with you, that they don't want yeah, at the parish council, that they don't want a referendum. I think you might be surprised. I think you might be on that. What I envisage later on, if these recommendations have been accepted and we'd have come back to council, it was perhaps even suggesting to the parish council that they do carry out a referendum. We've got experience in the working group of ones that have been carried out already, so the cost and what sort of response you get from them, and that would have added a different flavour to the consultation we carried out. So that's the sort of thing I would have looked at next. Size-wise, as someone's mentioned there, I think it was Councillor Lomax, it wouldn't be out of the way. There's enough residents there, 1,472. That's the electorate, and there are some clearly defined boundaries. We knew that during the while we were formulating the recommendations, and we spoke about it quite a lot. We've mentioned Councillor Lomax mentioned, and this is really important, because this came out at the consultation meeting when we had 50 people turn up, and I see Councillor Barnes in the gallery as well. There's 12, from my understanding, there's 12 people, there's 12 members on the parish council, and 4 are from Stonebroom. And I asked over and over again, and I think you know what I'm going to say, I asked over and over again, give me some examples of that. Give me some examples when Stonebroom have put something forward, Stonebroom councillors, and it's been turned down or worked against by other members that didn't live in Stonebroom. And I asked that repeatedly. If I didn't ask it 4 or 5 times, yeah, and officers were there too. And I couldn't get any, not one example. I'm still ready to hear those examples where people put things forward, like they might have put a particular, I don't know, whatever idea they put forward and wanted to do for Stonebroom or wanted to stop for Stonebroom. It just didn't come out. There was nothing there. We took no record of it at all. And I asked the question 4 or 5 times. So we made an effort with that. So for me, it may just be, and I tried to get to the bottom of this when I chaired that meeting, it may just be they've got disagreements on a council. And you can't call it dysfunctional, because many of these parish councils work like that. Certainly most of the ones I've been to, the places where you have disagreements. When it comes to, we've mentioned quite a few times, people have said, there's some comments over there that have said it's about the 74% and talking about turnout. Not the turnout's actually 4%, and it's 74% of that 4%, which is 3%. The whole parish of Wansbeck. So let's try and keep that in mind. It's not 74% turnout at all. It's 4% turnout. There was only one question which Councillor Gillett put to me, and that was qualitative. And we've spoken about the quantity quite a lot, but when it came to the quality of the actual responses, and we have to be careful how we say this, because it's how people write and it's how people respond. When you actually look at the hard copies of what people sent back, there were some good quality, knowledgeable replies. There were some, but there are also many people that just wrote, we want it. And you can't give the same, although it's somebody's view, you can't give the same sort of value on that and place the same weight on that, because that's what our guidance said. It said specifically we should be looking at the quality of the response, and that's why you've got these recommendations here that people might not necessarily agree with. That's why the response came from the working group, because of the quality and because of the number, the quantity as well. But the quality, as we've heard, it is in there. It's included in there. So that's the answer to the actual debate. Based on what Councillor Cupid has said, I've now got the amendment. I hope that's useful, by the way. So based on the views of the council and the consultation responses received, the council asked the working group to carry out further, more extensive consultation into the possibility of a separate Stonebroom Parish Council. As part of this, the views expressed by council will be relayed to consult. You have to excuse I'm trying to read your writing.
It's not mine.
Is it not? So that the council can reconsider the original recommendations. Petition. Okay. Petition. You'll have to look. So yeah, are we right? So we're happy to look at this again. I'm also happy to take suggestions, which I'll happily take outside this meeting. If anybody wants to email me with ideas for our working group, we're really open to that. So if you've got any ideas, I'm happy to all those parish meetings again. I'm happy to put the surveys out again. It's something we can do. We're not close to Stonebroom having a separate parish council, not at all. But we just didn't have the evidence to be able to recommend to this council. We're happy to go and look for it again, based on what you've heard. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor Barker.
Yeah, I think listening to that, I think I've got the idea. Yeah, I can accept that. I think you've listened to the debate and the feelings in the meeting that I think we support Stonebroom having their own parish council, but you need evidence to justify that. I fully accept that. So if you go in with that open mind that Stonebroom, you just need more evidence as to why Stonebroom should have its own parish, I believe. Is that what you're asking for? And if people get involved with that, I can go along with that recommendation to move us on. Thank you.
Any further comment? No? I'm happy to second the amendment, so we can move to the vote. Hands up. Everyone's keen, want to go home. This is in favour, definitely. That's carried, thank you very much. Make sure I've not moved on to. Item 12 is public participation. We've received no questions from the public. We move on to item 13, to answer any questions from members under procedural rule 9.2. In accordance with council procedure, rule 9.2 to allow members to ask questions about council activities. The replies to any such questions will be given to the chair of the council, the relevant committee, or the appropriate cabinet member. Questions must be received in writing. None have been received to date. Moving on to item 14, to consider any motions from members under the procedural rule number 10. And motion A has been moved by Councillor Alex Dale.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm not going to speak for long on this for the obvious reason. Obviously, there's previously been a council position around fracking. We've been opposed to fracking. I think that's pretty much been on a cross-party basis. You know, across the floor, all of us have agreed that we don't support that in North East Derbyshire, and rightly so. And obviously, several of us as individual councillors have been pretty heavily involved in the campaign, particularly at Marsh Lane, Bramley-Moore Lane at Marsh Lane. The other point I've just made is that many within our group were obviously very concerned by the government's decision to lift the moratorium. We didn't support it. We made our position pretty clear as a group, and I'm very pleased that that moratorium has been reinstated. I'm hoping that we can all put aside sort of any politics and just all support this motion in the way that we have done with previous motions. Acutely conscious that we have two motions on the table, one from Ross Slater. They are quite similar in many respects, but I'm acutely aware that there's 2 points on which Ross's motion has that mine doesn't. I think to move things along and speed it up, I'm really happy to accept both of those additions to my motion. So I'm going to suggest that we add a new point 3, which would say, write to Derbyshire County Council asking the authority to include provision for 500-metre exclusion zones around any exploratory or fracking drilling sites within their draft minerals plan. And then a new number 4 would be calls on the government to introduce a complete ban on fracking in the UK. And then the existing points 3 and 4 would become points 5 and 6. So those two new points in the middle, it makes more sense that they go there. And hopefully Councillor Shipman happy to second.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. And I will second that motion. Obviously, those two bits that have been added into this first motion make absolutely perfect sense. And I'll withdraw the next one as well. And I'll second this. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Thacker?
I think it's really good to hear proposal and second from cross-party. In terms of my views, I think there may be those who think fracking is the answer to the energy crisis. In almost 20 years of being a councillor, I have met 2 such people. However, the overwhelming view of residents I talk to is that fracking is not welcome in our district. Peter Elliott and myself have never wavered from our view that fracking is totally unacceptable in our ward and in the district. Fracking is the biggest threat to our countryside. It is opposite to all we are trying to achieve in our battle against climate change. It has no place in a zero carbon future. Evidence suggests that shale gas extraction can cause air and sound pollution. Evidence suggests that toxic chemicals used to frack can find its way into waterways and harm wildlife. So let me be clear. In my opinion, drilling to extract fossil fuels is not a solution to the energy crisis. On behalf of residents I represent and those that Peter represents, we say no to fracking in North East Derbyshire, and we support this motion.
Thank you, councillor Barker.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, Alex. Got to be a bit of politics in it. Again, I was a bit surprised to see this on the agenda. And I've got to question where, I wonder why you put it on. I might be a bit cynical, but I suspect the motivation for it might be down to cover up what both our MPs voted for a little while ago at Parliament, and you're trying to cover somebody's back with this. And if that's the rationale, I don't think it'll work personally. I think the residents of Eckington and Killamarsh, Colaston and Dromfield will not forget how certain people voted in that when they walked through that lobby. And we'll keep reminding them. And again, because you've added a couple of bits there, I mean, my main one was to say it's not just about North East Derbyshire, which you've added in that bit. It's got to be a United Kingdom ban on fracking. It's not just about banning it in this little bit. They start fracking in Bolsover, I think we'll get the repercussions of that. I had written another amendment, which again I've asked governors to print out. It's not massive, and I can accept what you added in this one that Ross had submitted. It does change paragraph 1. Welcomes the decision of the government to reverse its recent decision to lift the moratorium. It's not a new government, it's the same government with different people at top on it. And then added another paragraph, which will now be number 7, and it calls on the 4 group leaders, or in the absence of unanimity, the majority of group leaders to write jointly in the name of the council to the 2 members of parliament representing the residents of North East Derbyshire to express the council's opposition to hydraulic fracking anywhere in the United Kingdom and not just in Derbyshire. Obviously, I wrote that before them amendments were made, but I'll go back to my first point. I think it's trying to cover somebody's back. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Councillor Dow?
I'm sorry, but it is needlessly politicising the issue. I can't support it. The point about the members of parliament is just factually incorrect. They voted against allowing time for a debate on a matter. They did not vote for fracking. It is factually incorrect to suggest that they did. And I just don't accept it. If you look at what they actually voted for, what the motion on the table was in Parliament on that day, it was not what you think it is, and it's not what the Labour Party is spouting at the moment. Just factually incorrect. The second point I make is that it's not just the government at the time that voted to lift the moratorium, but it was supported by the trade union movement as well. GMB came out and very positively endorsed the lifting of that moratorium. So there are views across the political spectrum around fracking, and that's an uncomfortable truth, which I'm sure you don't particularly like. But this motion is just ridiculous. We had a decent motion. It was cross-party agreed, and I don't see the reason for adopting the amended version at all. I just ask you to withdraw it and let's get on with the meeting.
Councillor? I'm sorry, I can't see you now. Councillor Pickering, sorry.
I just want to second Councillor Barker's amendment to reserve my right to speak.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the floor is open now to discuss the amendment. Any comment, councillor Shipman?
Yeah, I think given the merging of the two motions that have been put forward, I really think that this amendment should probably be pulled, if we're being honest. It's not really achieving anything extra, and I think the original motion now actually does what we all, well, I hope we all want, which is to call on a national ban on fracking. I just think we're just wasting our time with it. I think it should be pulled.
Any other comment? No? Okay, so we have to vote on the amendment. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, the key part of this, as councillor Barker said, is our elected local representatives, the two MP constituents in North East Derbyshire, who have both campaigned against fracking in North East Derbyshire and supported not having a ban on fracking. Supported a moratorium, which is only temporary, and has been proved just recently in Parliament on a whim of whoever's leading that Parliament, it can change. We had a moratorium under one Prime Minister, we had it lifted under another, we've had it put back under another one. It's like watching the Chuckle Brothers. It's to me, to you, to me, to you. It's all on a whim. If there were an outright ban on fracking, then it'd take all that angst and pain from communities that are under threat of it at this moment in time. I know this one now has just said to campaign for a ban on fracking. We need to include campaigning to our MPs on that. And this district council's got an important message to give to those MPs. And it's not just about North East Derbyshire. If we don't want increased road traffic, road pollution, millions of gallons of untreatable polluted water that's going to be trickled into our river systems, if that's not acceptable in North East Derbyshire, it's not acceptable nationally. We shouldn't just have it in a bit of NIMBYism on what's appropriate in our backyard. We should go for an all-out national ban, and that includes our elected representatives getting on that and not just exploiting it for personal political gain in local elections.
Thank you, councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. I think with absolute respect to councillors Barker and Pickering, I think that the key point is that the amended motion that's been put to council already is to includes the line to call on the government to introduce a complete ban on fracking across the UK. So that there's no NIMBYism in there, and I respect that yours was written prior to this amended one kind of being in place, but this has been on, both have been on the agenda all along, so they have kind of both been there. So I think, given that it's not actually asking for anything different to what's already in the motion, I don't see the point in the amendment.
Thank you.
Well,
Councillor Becker?
I was just about to say, thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to respond to Councillor Pickering's comments, but I actually feel quite strongly about your last statement, almost accusing people of doing these things and saying these things just because they want to do well in. Some of us have been councillors nearly 20 years, have been saying these sorts of messages month in, month out, week in, week out, year in, year out, and for you to then perhaps even hint that we're saying what we're saying today for any other ulterior motive is totally unacceptable. Unacceptable. I'm not interested, Councillor Morley. So we've been talking about fracking, and this is an opportunity to come together as all parties, not play games. And you've just heard a seconding from the Liberal Democrats. You know that we don't always see eye to eye. Read the room. There was a clue. We don't always see eye to eye, but read the room. This is an opportunity for us all to come together and show the people we represent no to fracking in North East Derbyshire, because that's where we represent. And I don't think I should apologise for that. Thank you, Chair.
Carry on. Thank you.
I'm going to leave the motion as it stands, and it don't negate anything that's in there. I'm not taking, apart from that couple of words in that number one, just to actually correct it, but everything else can stay in. We just add in another paragraph, and if you don't like it, vote again it, and we'll go on from there.
Councillor Dale, you have the right to reply.
yeah, even if the point isn't levelled at local councillors around around doing this for election purposes, I just think that's completely factually incorrect. And, you know, to defend our MP, he was there at the planning committee meeting in the county council, he was there at the planning appeal, he was clashing with Ineos, he's done thousands of resident letters, hundreds of meetings around the issue. I just don't think it's really fair, you know, take the point, you know, try and score political points, and that's all it is really. When we talk about motions, item, your amendment with point 5, calling on the MPs, you know that they didn't vote for fracking, you know that that's absolutely not true, but it's you know, it's good political point scoring. We have an opportunity here to vote for a cross-party motion, let's just do that. But if you're going to put forward the motion, then I'll vote against, and hopefully we can all support the original amended motion as it stands.
Okay, councillor Barker.
Yeah.
We're off we go again with the roll call for a vote. Just to remind members, we're voting on the amendment first, and then after that, we will vote on the main motion, whether amended or not. I'll read your names. Councillor P. Wright. Councillor B. Wright. Councillor P. Winley.
Yes.
Councillor Welton. Councillor Thacker.
Against.
Councillor Tate. Councillor Stone. Councillor Stafford Stevenson. Councillor Shipman.
Against.
Councillor Ruff.
Against.
Councillor Rouse. He's gone. Councillor Rowe.
Against.
Councillor Ridgway. Councillor Romig. Councillor Reader. Councillor Powell. Councillor Potts. Councillor Platts. Councillor Pickering. Councillor Parkin.
Against.
Councillor Morley. Councillor Liggett. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Lacey. Councillor Kerry. Councillor Kenyon. Councillor Jones. Councillor Hartshorn. Councillor Hancock.
Against.
Councillor Gomez Reedy. Councillor Gillett. Councillor Fennell.
Against.
Councillor M. Foster.
Against.
Councillor A. Foster. Gone. Councillor Emmons. He's gone. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Dayton. Councillor Dale. Councillor Cupid.
Against.
Councillor Cooper. Councillor Clark. Councillor Birkin. Councillor Barry. Councillor Barker. Councillor Armitage. And Councillor Anklin.
Okay, the results from the amendment. The result was 14 for, 28 against, and no abstentions. The motion was defeated. We can now move on to the main motion. And we're doing it all again by roll call.
Yes? Yes? Oh, that's fine. As before, this is the motion, and I will do names, your names, tell me for, against, or abstain. Councillor P. Wright. Councillor B. Wright. Councillor Tate. Councillor Stone. Councillor Stafford Stevenson. Councillor Shipman. Councillor Ruff. Councillor Rouse. He's gone. Sorry. Councillor Rowe. Councillor Ridgway. Councillor Renwick. Councillor Reader. Councillor Powell. Councillor Potts. Councillor Platts. Councillor Pickering. Councillor Parkin. Councillor Morley. Councillor Liggett, Councillor Lewis, Councillor Lacey, Councillor Kerry, Councillor Jones, Councillor Hartshorn, Councillor Hancock, Councillor Hall, he's not there. Councillor Gomez Reading, Councillor Gillett, Councillor Fennell, Councillor M Foster, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Dayton, Councillor Dale,
4.
Councillor Cupid, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Clough, Councillor Birkin, Councillor Barry, Councillor Barker, Councillor Armitage, Councillor Ancliffe.
That was unanimous, so it didn't have to add up. Thank you. Moving on to motion B. This is presented by Councillor Windley. Councillor Hancock, are you going to second this because Ross has gone? Thank you.
Council notes, council budgets are used for a variety of grant schemes. A lottery scheme would be self-funding and provide additional resources to local community groups and charities on a voluntary participation basis, unlike taxation. Bolsover District Council and Mansfield District Council run lottery schemes and could offer advice on setting one up. The funding generated could be used to help organisations helping families get through the cost of living crisis. Council resolves to start its own lottery scheme using the amounts of generated to fund the scheme and then splitting the remaining 50-50 between the winners and funding local community groups and charities that apply.
Councillor Hancock, do you wish to second?
I'm happy to second, Chairman. I'll reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Chair. Go on, I'll make a start on this. It's a subject close to my heart. I can't support a lottery scheme at all, even though you've got in there voluntary participation, unlike taxation. For me, it's when you look at who pays for this. I think of my own, not my own experiences, but my experience with other people that have been involved in things like lotteries. When I look, a lot of gambling's now moved online. A lot of it has, and it's difficult to say who actually is spending that money online and how it's affecting people because of the people that actually collect that information, or the gambling companies. So it's difficult to say who's actually affected by it. But if you look at traditionally, the people that are affected by gambling, if you look at betting shops, I'm thinking of the ones I know off the top of my head, one in Dronfield, we've got one at Claycross and one at Eckington. If you look at the people that have stood outside those places, they're not the richest people. They're not the people that have got the most money. There are a certain section, for me, of society that does use these, that does use betting shops. If you look at scratch cards, when I see people buy scratch cards, for me, I see them when I'm in, when I'm paying for my petrol. There's somebody in front of me, and they never look like the affluent people. They look like people that are less affluent, I'll say it like that. If we look at the people that spend money in amusement arcades on things like fruit machines, I think those are a certain section of our society, people that are less affluent again. So for me, it's very often they look like some of our poorest residents. Now, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but for me, sorry? Well, you can object to it afterwards, put your hand up and object to it afterwards. But while I'm saying it now, this is my own view, and I feel quite strongly about it. You shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but when you look at how gambling affects people and how it affects communities, finish. Yeah. When you look at how it affects communities, I think it has. I don't think it does well from at all. We're looking at spending. If we were to set this up, you'd be looking at a 50-50 payout. Well, even fruit machines work on a minimum 75% payout. So for me, I think it's quite an immoral thing to set up. And I know everybody. That's why I've spoken first. I don't intend on going with what most people feel on this, but these are my own feelings about introducing gambling and the money it takes off a certain section of our society. So I don't expect everybody to agree with me on this, but it's, you know, it's not the way forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comment? I've got councillor Dale, councillor Wilton, councillor Barry, councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. Am I on? Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Open to exploring it, but from a process point of view, I don't think we should be making a decision of this level of significance on the basis of quite a short motion. And no offence to the, I appreciate why you put the motion on, but it's not a report that details some of the pros, cons, the costs, any potential unintended consequences. I think there are some ethical considerations here. I do have some degree of, discomfort with the idea of promoting gambling at a time when we are in the midst of a cost of living crisis. I get that these are community lotteries, they are for good causes. I do understand that, and there might be some benefits, but it is still a form of gambling. And, I do have some sort of philosophical views on that. I'm not saying I'm completely against it, but, there are important considerations that we ought to think about before reaching a decision like this. And there's also the costs, both in terms of the finances and the resources and officer time. I know that there are organisations who effectively run these lotteries for the council. I was actually contacted by one very recently who were sort of touting for business. But it does come at a cost, either to the council in terms of paying that organisation to run it, or it comes in cost of officer time, or actually both, because quite often the organisation will do so much, but you do have to front load some of the work from your own officers as well. And when I say costs, I don't just mean financial costs, I mean opportunity loss costs. We've got, you're all aware that we've got a huge number of really important projects, things like the town deal, a lot of the leisure centre projects, UK SBF. There's a huge amount going on at the moment, and I'd be loath to divert officer time to this. Not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing. It could have some merit, but at the moment, I just don't think it's the right time in terms of that officer capacity. So I'm not completely against the principle, open to exploring it, but I have concerns about whether right now is a good time to do it and whether it's actually the right thing to do at all. So I can't support the motion as it currently stands. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor Wilton.
Right at the end, I'll be quick. Thank you, Chair. Despite the good intentions, I'd have to vote against this as well on ethical grounds. I don't believe in gambling. We're a free society. What people do in the private sector is up to them, but the public body, I can't support it. I think gambling is wrong. It should be more restricted. And I know the huge problems of addiction and growing addiction. It is an addictive habit amongst a growing section of society. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Barry.
Thank you, Chair. Basically, I think this is something that could be looked at to scrutiny at some point. It doesn't need to be done here. I think that, like I said, there could be possibilities and it might not be. Totally understand where Councillor Foster's coming from about the gambling side of it and all the rest of it. But it is something that I think we could sort of look in, we can explore it. If it's not a goer, it's not a goer. That's fine. But I will take offence at what Councillor Foster said about people and looking like they're gamblers or looking like they're this or looking like they're that. I have to say, I wouldn't have classed myself as a gambler, but I have a caravan, and on that side they have an old-fashioned two-piece slot machine. My kids do that. They know the limit. They get a quid, and they get a lot of money. they get a lot of fun of it. They walk away, and as long as you're educating them, and you know that's fine, but don't presume just because somebody looks a bit scruffy or whatever that they are the ones that are going to have this habit. That is stereotyping people, and we should not be doing that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor Barker.
Yeah.
I was going to suggest that this is something that goes to a scrutiny committee with some recommendations after next May. Whoever's in charge can have a proper look at it. Exactly what you said, Alex. We don't know how much it costs, what the take-up's like, and I'm going to return me spy lottery ticket. I don't want to be stereotyped in that gang.
Councillor Reader.
Thank you, Jan. I again agree with the sentiments of the motion. You can understand, you know, community groups, they look for that kind of funding, but I do think we've got lots of schemes already in place where community groups can tap into it. So there are many different schemes you can access for that. including at county level, I believe there's other schemes there too. I agree with my colleagues. I think a scrutiny committee would be a good place to have the discussion, and you can have more of an exploration around the topic a little bit more, go more in depth of seeing if it is something that we could do. But I absolutely agree with Councillor Barry. I think Councillor Foster, when you look back at some of the comments you made, I think you were trying to make the right sentiments, but they've kind of come out a little bit wrong. You can't judge a book by a cover, which is what you said. You absolutely can't. And I've seen many affluent people that have got into trouble as well with gambling. So it can be on all spectrums of society. So I think we just need to remember that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Jones and Councillor Thacker.
I was just going to exactly the same as my two colleagues have said, especially about the language used, because a lot of people like their vote on the lottery is about a wish to improve their lives because there's nothing much else going on for them. But just go across all people. When people go to Royal Ascot, they're gambling. So please don't do things like that, because everybody shouldn't be classed as anything just because you presume that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thacker.
Thank you, Chair. I think for the sake of one word in this motion, things could be different. In the motion, it says to start a lottery, but it changed from start to explore the lottery, having a lottery, then it means that we can do what we've all been talking about, which means it could go to scrutiny, and in the ways that Councillor Dale's just described, we can start to find ways to perhaps launch it. What would it mean in terms of officer time? What would that mean in terms of taking officers away from frontline services? What companies could deliver this for us? We could go to Bolsover District Council, for example, and find out what works for them, what doesn't work for them. We could start the fact-finding mission, and if it works for us, let's launch it. But also, there's got to be a discussion about the morality of it and so on, and people can have a discussion then. But the fact of life in the 21st century is this is how a lot of fundraising happens for so many organisations, so many charities. And ultimately, while we know that some people have addictions from whatever walk of life they're from, it's up to them to decide whether to take the gamble or not. You know, it's not a nanny state. So when I last looked, it wasn't anyway. So I think we should explore the idea of a lottery. Just that one word change would make a difference to this motion.
Councillor Morley.
Right, thanks for that. I'll definitely be voting against it. But I just want to point out, on Saturday night, Claycross Parish Council donated nearly £4,000 to local groups, tennis clubs, table tennis clubs, OAPs, a lot of groups, nearly £4,000 paid out. We also give £25 to people over 60 for TV licenses. That's what Claycross Parish does. And I think you've got to get off your backsides and let your parishes run it and let them see what they can do. If they can do what we can do, I'm sure they can do it. So look at your balances, look at your precept and see what you can do. Getting a lottery is a no-no. It would cost a fortune. Don't get me wrong. We all know what officers have money on these days. Very high, and I'm not calling that, but it'll cost a fortune. You'd never do it. And how would you share it out? You'd never do it.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. I know I've spoken once, but it's a point of order, personal explanation. I didn't mention the word scruffy at all. Those words have been put into my mouth, so let's make that clear. What I said was look less affluent, and I still stand by that. My concern is at what section of society this is aimed at and how it affects people. And it's a genuine concern. And that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, to come back, I think the key thing, and yes, I do understand what Councillor Foster is trying to say, and I do take on board the point he's trying to make. I think the reality is that much more like Councillor Thacker says, this is a regular thing that's across multiple ones, and I think the sheer size of money that's on offer means that it doesn't really attract the sort of people who are wanting to, or who are likely to fall into a gambling addiction, because that kind of money is never likely to go on offer, so it self-regulates on that basis. I agree also with what Councillor Barry says, that sometimes we have a role to play in educating people and making them do it sensibly, and I think that's also part of it. Respect what people said about being explored. Perhaps that would be a better wording. Perhaps if council does turn it down, it would be minded to look at options in the future. And I think it's quite obvious it's not going to get the support, but I would say if that could be looked at, then that would certainly be appreciated.
Thank you. No other comment? Councillor Windley, you do have a right to reply?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we can move to. Shall we do it by show of hands? It'll be less time. Okay, those in favour of the motion, put the forward. Those against? Motion's lost. Thank you. Motion C, I believe, has been called. Is that correct? Yeah, thank you. So we can move on to motion D. Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. Would you be happy just to take a slight change here, because Councillor Cupid was going to propose an amendment, but seeing as substantially it's not changing much, can I suggest that I move the amended version, Councillor Cupid second it, rather than us go through the whole thing of having
like a ping pong ball.
Yeah. Yeah. So effectively the revised wording, if I can give that. Council notes between November and March, green bin collections are halted by North East Derbyshire District Council. Many residents ask members for, sorry, I'm trying to read these words, for improvements to our system during the autumn and winter months, particularly given the changes in our climate. The next bit has kind of been struck there, and council resolves to support plans to extend the garden waste collection period next year, as well as looking at a range of options to provide residents with environmentally friendly options for their green waste, which may include, but not be limited to, working with the county council on discouraging food waste and encouraging the use of compostable bags for food waste peelings, support with creating compost bins, and further advice on alternative ways to reduce and dispose of green waste in a way which is good for the environment. And I think the crux of the motion is there. The environment is changing. So whilst when this measure of suspending green bins was first introduced, it was relevant. I think that the climate has changed now. Things are growing much longer. We've got the period now we're entering autumn later, and people's grains are filling with leaves and such. At the moment, they're struggling to get rid of them while green bins are suspended. So that's really the ethos behind this, is to adapt the services that we're delivering to a changing need. So on that basis, I propose a motion.
Councillor Cupid.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hancock, for accepting that amendment. As you say, I think it's always been my aspiration personally as cabinet member to bring this through, always balancing climate change considerations, and Councillor Kenyon's gone now, so I can sneak it in while he's not here, but there was always that balance of, if you're driving around for an empty wagon, what's the point? But it is clear that the climate's changing, as you said, and in previous years we've looked, and I have committed previously at District Parish Liaison to look at extending garden waste, and we just haven't got round to it. A, because we thought the national changes were coming through, which are now being tested in Scotland, and then B, because obviously we've had the pandemic and had enough issues with our refuse services. But yeah, about 6 weeks ago, which is why I spoke to Councillor Hancock about this, I'd put it in motion with Street Scene to extend this, because we've got another Street Scene paper coming to Cabinet anyway, so we can put that in. So yeah, I'm happy to second the amended motion. I think Alan's got a few copies of it if anybody needs it, but Councillor Hancock read it out.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
I don't think we need a copy of that. Well, I've got the idea, haven't we? We were going to recommend this because we'll go to scrutiny, but now you've said that, Charlotte, I think that's fine. I think if you've made that decision, which is, like you say, things are changing. we don't have a winter gearing, well, not till June anyway.
We have
And,
weather.
so, yeah, I think we can accept what you've,
Any other comment? I need binoculars then. In which case, if there's no comment, shall we go straight to the vote? I'm just going to do a show of hands. Those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried, thank you all. As I have no urgent business for this, I am going to ask the public if they can leave the meeting. Thank you.